Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have 5:30, and I can confirm that the streaming and the live stream and the recording are working, and you may begin your meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I see that we have quorum, so I will call this meeting to order. Regular council meeting for Monday, December 20th, 2021, last meeting of the year. First thing we do is the land acknowledgement. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the agenda for the December 20th, 2021 regular meeting of council be adopted. Mr. Mayor, I do have an amendment being put forward by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the agenda be amended to move items 4.2 and 4.3 inclusive, being delegations, and the report of Regional Councilor, to be heard before item 4.1 presentations, and to move items 10.2.1 and 10.2.3, which are staff reports, after item 5, adoption of minutes, and to move item 10.1, report from Councillor Hildebrandt regarding Cannabis Control Committee update, after item 13, presentation and consideration of bylaws. To you, Mr. Mayor, for consideration.
Okay, any debate or discussion on the amendment thus read by the clerk? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the amendment, we'll begin the vote with Councillor Hahn.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hildebrandt?
Yes.
Councillor Kaur?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, I do have another amendment being put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt, that the agenda be amended to add an additional delegation from Ms. Joyce Sonnefeld regarding drainage issues at Weber Road and Far Road. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or comments on this amendment to the agenda? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. If you'd like, you can ask if there are any other amendments.
Would any councillor have any further amendments to make to the agenda? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is brought forward by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt, and it's be it resolved that the agenda for the December 20th, 2021 regular meeting of council be adopted as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any further discussion.
Any further discussion from councillors? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This again begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry, and that does bring you to the disclosure of pecuniary interest.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any councillor have a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have so noted. To you, Mr. Mayor, as we have amended the order of the agenda, that does bring us to our presentations first. We do have a registered delegate with us tonight. The first one would be Mr. Tony Roberto, and it is Peter Bidaji, and they are here tonight to discuss the Weber Road drainage and present a presentation to council. The petition was attached to the agenda. I would just ask Ms. Leach to bring our registered delegates into the meeting. I can see. I would just ask Ms. Leach to bring our registered delegates into the meeting. I can see that Peter is here. I'd just ask Peter to stop watching the streaming. Ms. Leach to bring our registered delegates into the meeting. I can see that Peter is here. I'd just ask Peter to stop watching the streaming. Okay, so I do see that Peter is in. I'm not sure if Tony is also joining.
I'm here.
Hi, Peter. Is Tony joining you as well?
He is. He's alongside me. I don't know if you can see him.
Oh, I see. Sorry. You do have your camera turned off. If you would like, you can start your camera. You just turn it on by hovering at the bottom of your screen and say start camera if you so choose.
Hold on.
It's not a requirement. We can hear you. I would just like to remind you that your presentation is limited to 10 minutes. To you, Mr. Mayor, and they can begin whenever they wish.
Okay, gentlemen, you have the floor.
Sorry, it's not letting me connect, but we'll talk anyway, and I'll try and play with it. Tony, go ahead. I'll let you start.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk to you guys. I mean, the city, town council. I'm glad to be here, and hopefully we can resolve some issues. We have a very a water problem in our backyards, as well as the amount of water collecting there that just won't disperse. What we're trying to do is figure out a way to drain this water, because all it's doing is just creating a hazard for everyone. Now, should I repeat what we said on the petition, or we all know what's been said?
I believe all of council has looked at the petition and understands what it entailed.
I've had the mayor. I've spoken to you personally, and you agreed with me that there is a problem. Correct?
Yes, I believe I do agree there's a problem. Unfortunately, after that, we didn't agree on too much common ground, sir.
I know, but still, nonetheless, there is a concern here. We're called what's his name? Wayne Olson. He also came to the house. We walked the premises, and because of it, we walked the backyards where all the water has developed, where the problem has been developing, and he noticed that there's definitely a problem with the drain. And the problem, what we're concerned about is that the problem is we're collecting too much water in our area. Maybe if somehow most of the water was redirected away at from the north part. We have a field north of us, which seems to be drained to our area under the street, and that's just kind of overburdening the drain. If it's not working with the little bit of water we get, what makes the think that it's going to work when we get overwhelmed with the water coming from across the north side of Weber, coming under the culverts, under the roads to our side of Weber? It just doesn't make sense. You're overwhelming one area with water.
The other issue that we have with that water is that if we're draining a lot of the water from the north side, a couple years back, Rankin put in 3-foot culverts under Weber Road to shed the water. So there's two things at issue here that I think are a major problem. Number one, we're taking on all this water. And I don't know, I think maybe the region needs to get involved, because there's 3 houses on Victoria Avenue that were told to put an 18-inch culvert in there. which definitely can't handle the amount of watershed that's going on. We're not looking for pressured water. We're looking to disperse water. So if we're using 3-foot culverts under Weber Road, then why weren't they made or told to use 3-foot culverts to shed the water? So the flow is consistent and fast to go into the sewer that's at the corner of Weber and Victoria. I think that's a main issue. The other main issue is that everything was fine until the swale was relocated in order to make these lots buildable. We all understand that there was a judgment made in court under testament that they could be divided up. But again, Town of Pelham issued permits for them and didn't overlook, or I don't know how it happened, but I know one day I came home and there was a yellow backhoe in my backyard relocating a swale, which I had brought to the attention of the Town of Pelham back in 2017. And ever since then, we've had this water problem. Now, the other issue that we have here that we fear is that we all have small kids. So we've had an increase of mosquitoes, we've had an increase of ticks, we've had an increase of sandflies, and the last thing that we hope, knock on wood, never happens is that one of our children gets stuck in this pool of water and ends up falling face first and drowning and dies. We're trying to eliminate that before we have an accident. And then the main thing is, again, we all put value into our house, into our properties. We pay high taxes to the Town of Pelham, and we're trying to figure out a way to work alongside you guys to come up with a solution on what we can do. Like Tony had mentioned, we were dealing with Councillor Olson on this matter, and I know we spoke about, I know your agenda on the community planning and development was to hire an engineering firm to give a survey of what's going on. But I think that we should first start by just digging out the swale properly that was originally there and got moved, and see where the watershed comes from there. And also possibly getting the region involved and having them disperse the water from the north side of Weber Road and come down the ditch into Weber and disperse itself or shed itself into the Welland Canal through the sewer system that they have there. And I think that's going to be a lot cheaper, and it's going to solve a lot of problems for now. And those are really our thoughts and opinions on what we think might happen or could happen to possibly solve this problem.
If I just want to add, if we can fix this the simple fix is just to dig out what's there. It's not flowing. If it flows like, see, the water seems to look like it's going uphill instead of downhill, which to me is why we get a buildup. The water gets caught with all the weeds, with all the bulrushes, all the, what do you want to call it? All the deposits from the water, and the erosion just carries more dirt, and it's just a mess. That's all I can tell you.
And also, when the swale was relocated, it went from, I believe, a 12 to 15-foot swale down to a 4-foot swale. The swale was 12 feet. Last I measured a couple of years ago was 12 feet wide by 5.5 feet deep. And when it was relocated, it's only 3.75 feet wide by 1.5 feet deep. So just using basic mathematics, you're only going to get 1.5 feet of water shedding at all times, which still leaves that 4 feet of water sitting in a pool collecting until that elevates to be able to flow out. So again, back to what we said, we think that if we dig out that swale properly, it could rectify a lot of these problems before we get into thousands and thousands of dollars.
I'm kind of saying one more thing. I think it would be good if, I'm happy that Mr. Olson came down and looked at everything, but maybe if the rest of the council saw it and they realized it is a problem, I mean, it's almost like taking one man's word over another. Mr. Olson was nice enough to come down and see that we have a problem. I don't know what the other councilors have, have they viewed the problem here? Do they know about it? I mean, seeing is believing. That's all I can say. You know what I mean? That's how we opened Mr. Olson's eyes, and the mayor as well. He told me he was down here, and I accept his word, and he said that it was a problem, and there is. And a lot of the responses was that these things should never have been sold. These lots should not have been sold. That's the response I get all the time. And if they weren't supposed to be sold, why were they sold? Why were they developed? And why wasn't the builder or developer made to grade the whole area first before they built on these houses, put these houses in, right?
No, okay, gentlemen, if that is your presentation, then we will open the questions up to council. Are you ready? Is your presentation finished, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And maybe perhaps before I open it to council, I would like to have either the planner, Director of Planning, Ms. Weens, or Director of Public Works, Jason Marr. Perhaps either one of you might want to comment on the presentation. I'll go to Director of Planning first, please. Ms. Weens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yes, I, don't doubt that there are certainly problems with drainage there. As the presenters indicated, the property owner did realign a swale or drainage ditch at some point in time, and whether that ditch is the same or not is not something that we can confirm. But there certainly are some drainage issues there. We know that this year has been incredibly wet, and I'm sure that the soils are very saturated and not able to, kind of take on more drainage. However, that drainage swale is on private property. It's not on town property. And so it's very difficult for the town to do work on private property. It's not something that we have the authority to do. And, we do have a report on this matter, and I think there's some, options laid out in the report in terms of, potential solutions or options for the residents to consider.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Weens. Director of Public Works, anything to add at this time, or not, Mr. Marr?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one point of clarification is that the roadside ditches that are along Weber and Victoria Avenue are regional ditches. They're regional roads, so they are not town roads. So the town wouldn't have any jurisdiction over the drainage within those roadside ditches.
Okay. So the residents, if they wanted to redirect water on the north side of Weber Road, they would have to talk to regional engineers then.
For you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. The region would have to be contacted regarding those cross culverts on Weber Road. As well, roadside ditches are meant to take water from the roadway surface only. It's not meant to transport water as a drainage course. So, but definitely the region has the jurisdiction over Weber Road, Victoria Avenue, and those roadside ditches.
Okay, thank you for that, sir. I will now turn to council. After hearing the presentation, is there any councillors that would like to comment, ask questions on the presentation? I see. Oh, okay. Well, I see Councilor Wink. Go ahead first, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Planning. These lots were created by a testamentary trust and did not have an approved subdivision, which has been pointed out to us on several occasions. To issue a building permit, for these lots, is there a requirement to address drainage on these lots? Because, you know, probably the first people in didn't have a problem, and then as the lots got developed, the situation got compounded.
Ms.
So
Weens?
can you comment on that, please?
Ms. Weens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yes, Councillor Wink, you're quite correct that there isn't an overall stormwater management plan for this area. The lots were not created through a plan of subdivision, which is when we typically and how we typically require stormwater management. These lots were created through testamentary devise. That was a legal process at the time under which the lots were created, and as indicated by the presenters, they are legal lots. People are able to buy and sell those lots. And with respect to what we require at the time of building permit, we do require the proponents to prepare a lot grading plan for their individual lot. And so that is reviewed at the time of building permit applications are received and signed off by public works staff as part of the building permit approval. The challenge is again, because there isn't an overall stormwater management plan for this area, there is no outlet that's being identified. There's no capacity in that outlet that's being identified. And so we can deal with the grading on the individual lots on an individual basis, but it's not being dealt with as a comprehensive plan or on a comprehensive basis. And as each lot gets developed, they may change the grade or raise the grade slightly on their individual lot, and then that then impacts the neighboring property. But their lots have been developed in accordance with their grading plans that were approved at building permit stage.
Thank you,
Counselor?
Director.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kaur, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor, to one of the directors. If the individual, I presume is a private individual, that changed the swale, did he have the right to change it? And do we have the right to ask them to put it back to the original swale?
Ms. Weens?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, that alteration occurred a number of years ago, and I cannot say for certain that they received Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority permit approval to do that alteration or not. They needed to relocate that swale in order to get a septic permit on those lots, and so that's how and why the swale was relocated. Whether or not there was approval given for that, I can't say specifically. I do know that after the fact, the region did get involved because there was some impact on their roadside ditch on Victoria Avenue as a result of that, and they did get involved and worked with the property owner to resolve that issue on their roadside ditch. That's my understanding of what happened about 6 or 7 years ago now.
Councillor?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director, can we still make him accountable or responsible?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, again, it's not something that the town can make someone responsible for. It will require a legal court case or legal action against him, and then the courts would rule on remedies and resolutions on such a thing. It's not something that we can impose.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Olson?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Peter and Tony, for your presentation. There's no doubt at all what you're saying is there's a problem, and it's likely to get worse because of climate change and all the rest of the things that are happening. through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Weens, is there anything we can do with the region and to work together with them to come up with some solution? I think this looks like to me like a whole bunch of small solutions with a big result. So, is there anything we can do there?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I mean, I think the region is aware, but we can certainly have some further discussion with them. But as Director Marr indicated, the roadside ditches are meant to handle roadside drainage, and the drainage from the north to the south is the way those lands have been draining for many, many years. And I'm not sure if the region has any other remedies that would be beneficial for these property owners, but we could certainly have a conversation with the regional staff to, see if there is something that they can do.
Peter, go ahead, sir.
Hi, thanks for hearing me again. I understand that the water on the north side is for drainage of the road, but it's not just draining the road. It's actually draining the farmland, the golf course, the houses, whatever else is there. So as far as it being a watershed containment from just the road, it's not. If we go and look at the farmland right now, there's a big, huge puddle of water draining from the cornfield through the 3-foot culvert into the south side culvert. So as much as we say it's a rain or road allowance for the ditch, it's not being treated that way from the region. And I understand, I've been in talks with them about it, but prior to this land being farmland, under testament or not, we were all issued building permits to build here. And if a subdivision needed to be divided, I think that the town of Pelham should have made that aware, disclosed that prior to issuing permits to build here. I mean, if we're just going to allow every builder to come in here because it's not subdivided into a subdivision, we can have houses that are 15, 20 feet higher than others, just shedding water. And I mean, I think I read on your website that, and I know when I put in my septic bed, it states clearly that you're not allowed to shed water to any of your adjacent neighbors. So going back to the property owner who moved the swale, does that bylaw or Ontario law not fall against him, because he's shedding his water on his private property on everybody's property, not just mine, but all 26 or 27 names from the petition. And we should be able to, under that act, at least contact him one way or another and have him fix the damage that originally occurred, like Mr. Core, I believe his name was, mentioned, without having to go through legal ramifications, only because he moved something that he shouldn't have or did get approved of, whatever, however it comes out. But at the same time, water is shedding, affecting all other neighbors adjacent to him, which breaks that bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Peter. I'll go back to either Ms. Weens or Director Marr. Ms. Weens, you've been doing a pretty good job so far explaining things. Why don't perhaps we'll go back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, I don't have anything, new to add. These are, again, what I refer to as common law drainage issues. And if there is a drainage issue, staff does not have the authority to, identify who's responsible, and the town doesn't have that authority. It does require a legal action, I'm afraid. And, it's a very unfortunate circumstance. And, in this case, the town also was compelled to issue building permits. We could not refuse them because those lots were legally established. Despite attempts, by the town to provide controls, those were not circumstances that the town was successful in trying to put into place. And so, it is a very difficult situation, and, we certainly feel for the residents. I'm just not sure that I can offer a solution this evening. I'm sorry for that.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Weens. Basically, I believe the town's stance and what you have just said is that it is a civil property matter between two landowners. Thank you. Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have the information on who moved the swale? Was it an individual lot owner after it was divided, or was it the fellow who acquired the property in a testamentary device?
Tony or Peter, do you know, would you be willing to say?
Yeah, it was the owner under testamentary advice. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? I believe it's Tony.
Yeah. I just have just one question. Why is it so difficult for one level of government to contact another level of government? Why can't they be mutually agreed on? Is that difficult? Like, I can't call a municipal government, cannot call a regional government, or vice versa. They just don't see eye to eye. Is it that bad of a conflict that one person just can't approach another? I mean, it doesn't seem like a big deal. I mean, all it takes is a phone call and you start talking, and then maybe it'll be a mutually agreed upon that they'll both work on this matter. Why is it? It feels like nobody wants to step on other people's toes. If you don't mind me talking that way, I mean, that's what it looks like. Oh, that's not mine, it's theirs. Oh, that's not theirs, it's ours. It's like, when does just helping out the person matter more than just rules and regulations that you just don't want to, you just don't want to break one rule, and that is to contact region and say, look, there's a problem. There's a problem. We know there's a problem. Let's fix it. Why can't we do that? It's just, I don't see that much of a problem. I mean, all it takes is a phone call, a conversation, and it's like, does not the region listen to the town of Pelham? You're part of it. We pay taxes to the region too, right? Am I not mistaken there? I mean, I see regional taxes, I see town of Pelham taxes, and if they can take taxes as much as you guys can, then we should be able to say, look, a taxpayer needs our help. Let's get this resolved. Okay. I don't see the difficulty in that.
So I will, before I go back to Ms. Weens, I believe that Ms. Weens and town staff have already had comment or talked with the regions, and the region just probably doesn't see the problem. Is Ms. Weens, you want to comment on that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. There certainly has been discussions with the region, and I indicated we can certainly have, further discussions with them. But like us, they are also not responsible for the drainage on private property. And so we can certainly explore to see if there is anything that can be done. I just can't give you the answers this evening that you're looking for.
Back to Councillor Corr.
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor, to any of the directors. So there is no way, or there's no level of government to force this individual to put it back the way it was. The only way to do that is go through a court system.
Ms. Weens?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I see the CAO had his hand up.
I'm sorry.
So I'll defer to him.
Yeah, okay. Mr. CAO.
I think just slightly recharacterizing this probably helps, which is to say, although both of our guests are correct, I'm sure they pay property taxes to both the region and the municipality. The property taxes actually don't pertain to water and drainage. That, of course, would be your water rates, which, as you know, is a separate budget, and these properties aren't involved in that. But stepping back, the real issue here is that there is no public interest. There's a reason why neither the region nor the municipality have jurisdiction. Fundamentally, a neighboring property did or did not do something to their land, which is now causing flooding, is or is not causing flooding to the delegates. So it is fundamentally a private dispute. And the problem here, and that's why we don't have a mechanism to respond. Prior to development, the town would have had some jurisdiction in a normal development, and we discharge our duty through site plan control. We didn't get the chance to do that. The court said otherwise. And the law changed after that case, by the by. It was very badly decided, so the law in Ontario changed. But so understanding the reason we don't have any jurisdiction is that it's just private land we're talking about here. And I don't mean just, it's people's homes, and your home is your castle. I don't mean that to sound unkind, but it's a private dispute between private parties, and Ontario provides a mechanism to adjudicate those. And it is not the town of Pelham or the region of Niagara or the province of Ontario.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. CEO. I see Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then it leads me to another question. Why are we not suing the courts then as a municipality for allowing this to happen, to protect the people? I mean, if the courts agreed and allowed this individual on private property to subdivide it, and now it's become a mess, and moving forward, if I mean, looking at your report, if all this other planning goes through, it's going to be an even bigger mess. And I'm sure, I know that Councilman Olson and whoever else is on board here can attest to that. Why are we not going to the court saying, listen, we warned you, we made a case about this back in whenever it was, and now we have all these people who have built single dwelling houses on this land that we wanted a subdivision layout for, and this is the problem now that we're creating, where we can't access their land due to private property. It's going to cost who knows how many thousands of dollars to fix it, and we as a town feel that shouldn't be, and we're not responsible for that due to your judgment on this, the whole case.
I'll pass that question to the CEO, please.
Well, basically the way the legal system works is whether a court gets a case right or wrong. You can't sue the judge after the fact, say you made a bad call. There's an appellate mechanism, and when that fails, I mean, people get wrongly imprisoned, sue Ontario or the federal government, not the court that actually adjudicated. So that's not within the logic of our system. Unfortunately, here, what we clearly have is a private dispute. Clearly, there is some sort of problem. Ms. Weens is correct. It's not really appropriate for town staff to point a finger at party A or party B, but there's a live issue here. And there is a mechanism and a forum for it to be heard. This just isn't it.
Thank you. So Peter and Tony, I invite you to continue listening to this council meeting tonight. There is another resident in your section of town that is also bringing a drainage matter to this council, and there may be this council may decide to take a step to have the entire drainage of that section looked at, and then we would go from there. If council decides to do that, we would be shown some options as to what we could do. Other than that, I will ask one more time, is there any more councillors that have a question or comment to the presenters? Councillor Corr, do you have a hand up?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Peter and Tony. Have you approached the gentleman that moved the swale, and what was his response?
Gentlemen?
I've made several phone calls to him over the last 4 years since when he first moved it. I actually went to the building inspector back then. I don't know if I'm allowed to name names, so I won't. He actually advised me that nothing would change and that the town of Pelham was looking at it. And then as the houses went up, I was on the phone with the gentleman probably once every couple months to come in and fix the problem. He assured me he would come out every 3 days. Just like I just met Councillor Olson on Friday. We went over what was to be discussed today. On my way home, I phoned a gentleman again who owns the land and said, it's a disaster out here. You need to come here and fix it. If you don't want to fix it, drop some heavy equipment off and I'll do it for you. And I got chuckled at and laughed at and said, okay, I'll be out there next week and I'll get it all fixed up for you guys. I don't want any problems. Tony was in the car with me. He heard the whole conversation, and that's pretty much what's been transpiring over the last 5 years. We reach out to him. He says he's going to come within the next couple of weeks to fix it. No one ever comes here. And then we're back at square one, going to the town of Pelham and complaining about all the water issues that we have. So to answer your question, yes, I have several times.
Can I say something to Mr. Corr?
Go ahead, Tony.
Well, you brought up that question about that gentleman, the developer. To hear him talk, it sounds like I know I heard in past references to the guy, there was nothing positive said about him, okay? But to hear him talk, I think he could be swayed to do what has to be done, because he knows there's a problem. He's been made aware of it. And I'm sure if there's some kind of, how do you put it?
If we're allowed to get permission from him, could the town of Pelham enter the property if we have a written document from him saying that, you know, I mean, I don't know anyone who wouldn't do free work if we say to him, listen, we got a problem, let's fix the problem.
And I'm sure he wants to be on good terms with the whole town of Pelham. If he can repair damage that he's caused, that would only make him look better in your eyes. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure, like, no builder or developer wants to be on anybody's bad books, right? They need your permission to pass things and inspect things. So therefore, you know, if they can make themselves look better to you guys, it might be a benefit thing for him as well as for the town of Pelham. I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know, when I hear about what the relationship between the town and this developer, I just hear that nothing but bad things. And I don't know, that seems like what's scaring people away from approaching each other as opposed to trying to get together and find a solution.
Well, I'll turn it back to the CEO, but I think if you had permission from that, you need permission from an owner, and then I think what you have to do is find a private contractor to carry out what you need. I don't think the town of Pelham isn't in the contracting business, but go, Mr. CAO?
Your worship has hit the nail on the head.
Thank you. So, is that you, Councillor Stewart? You have a hand up?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Cribbs. I'm just throwing this out. Is it an option for these landowners, the people who are petitioning? Would it be advisable for them to sue the developer property owner to get resolution? Or would a threat of a lawsuit possibly help?
I think if they were to read the staff report, although it has a slightly different focus, it's not written in response to their presentation as delegates, but that there's a strong inference within that report of steps that could be taken by themselves.
Any other questions or comments from council If not, then I'm going to thank the presenters for presenting. And again, I encourage you to stay on for the coming discussions on drainage in your area. Again, Tony and Peter, thank you for making your presentation tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you, council, for listening to us.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that council receive correspondence from Tony Ruby and Peter Baaji regarding the Weber Road drainage for information, and that council receive their presentation and the petition submitted by residents of Weber Road, Far Road, River Road, and Victoria Avenue requesting the clearance of ditches and waterways towards the Welland River be received for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Yes. Any more discussion on the presentation? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Ms. Leach will just take those presenters out and put them back into the waiting room. And we would move on to our next delegate, registered delegate, which is Mr. Frank Adamson. And this is with respect to the arches as a replacement update. I'll just ask Ms. Leach to bring Mr. Adamson in. Oh, I do see that he is in the meeting room, and it looks like James Federico is also joining us.
I see Councillor Wink. You have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm not can't recall how we amended the agenda, but wouldn't the drainage issue, the next presenter be presenting at this point in time, and then Mr. Adamson?
Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly the agenda was revised to add the third additional delegate. However, I was intending just to have that delegate to be the third one, unless council others so wise wishes and desires. Mr. Adamson would just have to wait until the next delegate was completed.
Usually, I believe when we add a delegate to the agenda, the other ones that are already on take preference, and then the add-on speaks last. But if it's council so wishes, Madam Clerk, what would it take to move agendas around?
If council unanimously decided that that is what they wished, then certainly I would ask Ms. Leach to replace Mr. Adamson and Mr. Federico into the waiting room and bring Joyce in.
Well, let's, Frank, would you mind, Frank, if you move back a spot?
I've been waiting 3 years, so not a problem at all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Seeing no other objection from council, thank you. I'd ask Ms. Leach to please remove these delegates and please bring in Ms. Sonneville, please. If council can just give us a moment to do that musical chairs a little bit.
Thank you for that, Madam Clerk.
Of course. I do see Ms. Sonneville is now in the meeting. She can unmute herself and turn on her camera if she does so wish. I would just remind the presenter that we do have a 10-minute time limit, and I will ring the bell at about 8 minutes, giving you a 2-minute warning, and then again twice I will ring the bell at 10 minutes. Mr. Mayor, to you.
Okay, Ms. Sonfeld, you have the floor.
Yes, hi everybody. As some of you may know, we're the farmers that have farmland at the corner of Far and Weber Road, and it's been subjected to flooding. Have you all had a chance to look at the photos of the flooding?
Yes.
Okay, so then I won't have to put them up, but it's our farmland that's forming part of the background and analysis for part of the staff report. Water is being directed onto our property from the neighboring subdivision and causing flooding. As indicated in the report, I know this is not a planned subdivision, and so there's no real cohesive drainage plan. We've been farming this land for many years and have never had this amount of flooding. The development was never there before, and it used to be a very productive piece of farmland with drainage swales, and it was never an issue. The biggest issue started for us when the lot at 250 Far Road, which is the west side of Far, received permission from the NPCA and the town of Pelham to change the drainage pattern and direction of the water flow. The water from the West Far field, where the subdivision is, has historically flowed to the west, directly to an outlet at Weber Road and Victoria Avenue, and then into the Welland River. If you look at aerial imagery and historical knowledge will also confirm this. However, the new pattern that's now emerging is that the water flow is being directed east onto our field, causing major flooding issues, and basically the alteration at 250 Far Road just opened the floodgates and turned our farm field into a large retention pond. The report staff had put out also mentioned that we had blocked a natural water course, because in the report it states we had put up a berm to protect our farmland from the flooding, which under common law with drainage we are permitted to do. And the report also mentions prescriptive rights, but fails to mention that the added water, which is coming from the subdivision, from all the roofs, all the eaves troughs, are being directed into the ditch and then ultimately into our farm fields. The driveways, they don't absorb water like a farm field, and it's all being directed into the ditch, the road ditches, and then into our farm fields. So the staff report also indicates a water course, and I say water course because it's not a water course. We've farmed that whole piece, there's no water course there, but neglects to mention the West Far subdivision water course being regulated by the NPCA. I'm not sure why this is. Where was the NPCA and the town when these houses were built in what used to be a productive piece of farmland? It seems like us farmers were far removed from the city of Fonthill and the town of Fonthill and all that, but it seems like we're pitted against development. We don't want to be in that situation. We just want to farm the entirety of our farm piece without any flooding. Another question is the permit at 250 Far Road, the one that basically opened the floodgates of the flood onto our field. Has that been reviewed? Like, I understand that any report should be reviewed by the NPCA or any permit to make sure it's indeed accurate and that it takes the whole account of the whole field into consideration. It's just that one small piece that they got a permit for, but no consideration was given to the rest of the property. I'm also curious about the outlet at the corner of Weber Road and Victoria that was altered by the developer. How did that happen? There's three critical pieces to that field: is the outlet, the interior, and at Far Road. And all those pieces were altered, causing the flooding. As the Weber Road delegation mentioned, many changes have occurred to the farm field, including the homes that were built on what was basically not intended for houses. So with regards to Far Road flooding, once the berm is back in place, it will indeed flood. The road will flood. We had the berm there, and we removed the berm under duress in order for the town to come up with a workable solution. We have suggested a municipal drain would go a long way to solve that issue. This drain would act as a master drainage plan for the roads, the current houses, and any future houses. This drain would and should follow the historical direction of the water flow and allow all the properties, including the roads, that includes Far Road, Weber Road, within the assessment areas to benefit from it. However, the town indicates it's not appropriate for them to initiate a petition since the road isn't flooding, even though it is well within their rights to initiate it. Well, of course, the road's not going to flood now. It's because we removed the berm in order to allow the town time to come up with a solution. So basically, we're allowing our field is flooding because we opened the berm to protect our land. The report mentions the town is currently in litigation with the developer, but I'm not really sure why that has any effect on trying to solve a flooding issue. And then another point in the staff report, it talks about the strategic plan relationship, risk management. Whose risk are we talking about here? It's important to understand that our farm field is also private property and is under no obligation to accept the water forced upon it. With imminent risk of the road flooding, the town has a procedurally correct resolution of a municipal drain available, which will solve a lot of problems for that whole area. And one more thing, it's also important for the town of Pelham to recognize the importance of agriculture. The OFA says Ontario is losing 175 acres of farmland a day to urban development. The two subdivisions at Far River and Weber are a combined loss of over 170 acres of farmland. Resulting flooding adds even more loss of farmland. Protection of agricultural land is a matter of provincial interest, and the policies in place need to be used to protect the rights of farmers to farm without interference, and that includes flooding. To conclude, we would like Council to direct staff to start the process for petitioning for a municipal drain in order to provide road drainage and to remedy the development drainage issues. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sonfeld, for your presentation. I will open it up to questions from council first, and obviously they will probably be asking staff to comment on it. Councillor Kaur?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter. What is the estimated cost to your farmer lost revenue if this continues?
We have not calculated that yet, but I can come up with a number down the road, but nevertheless, it is our land that's flooding and we want to farm the entire piece.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, did we not have a situation when we took office in Fenwick similar to this?
Yes, indeed, somewhat similar, indeed. Water being directed onto private property, but this is a little different. I guess I had a great talk with the director of planning, and I had a great talk with the director with our drainage man himself, Mike Zimmer, and and if we can solve a lot of conversation here, perhaps I'll tell you that, as you know, when we were doing the budget, debate, we left $50,000 on the table to be used at our discretion, solving, or at least to begin looking at this problem. So staff is more than willing that if council decides to appoint an engineer, this engineer will be a drainage expert, and he will study the lay of the land, both concerning the Sonfeld property, the area west of the of Far Road, and he will come back with options, how we can move ahead to solve these problems. Because right now, as you could see with the material that we got from Ms. Sonfeld, and believe me, if you sit down and talk to Mike Zimmerman about drainage, there's a lot of cards on the table and a lot of terminology that has to be decided before a decision can be made. So simple thing that I learned today was they talk about a water course, but the question is the water course is defined by banks, but is a bank 2 inches high or is it 3 feet high? That's something that has to be determined by this engineer that we would hire for our money. He would come in, as I said, look at the problem, and then he would come back and bring options to the town. It would be a first step in trying to get a handle on this situation. And any comment on that? Councillor Kaur.
Yes, I just want to make one comment. I just hope that we don't take over 10 years to solve this problem, like the last one in Fenwick, which was over 10 years.
Actually, yes.
Okay, and I hope we do our due diligence
Yes.
and try to rectify this problem in a timely fashion.
Yes, and the other one was indeed, I believe it was 18 years. And by taking this first step tonight and hiring this engineer, it would be an immediate step. I don't know, perhaps if Ms. Weens or Mike Zimmer, I believe he's on, would have any idea how long that would take. Obviously, you have to put on our RFP. Any idea, Ms. Weens or Mike Zimmerman, Mr. Zimmerman, how long that would take before he got back to council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this was one of the options that was looked at in the staff report. And then as council will recall, last week on Tuesday, included in the budget process was the identification of $50,000 to do this work included in the capital budget. So if that gets approved this evening with the capital budget, then we would move forward. What that means is we would need to do terms of reference for the study and do a proposal call, get proposals in, evaluate those, and award that to a qualified consulting firm to do the work. I would expect that the study would take probably, anywhere between 8 to 10 months, and then that study would lay out what the drainage patterns are for the area, where the flows go, and then identify options to look at to deal with the drainage issues. So I don't know, Mr. Zimmer, as the drainage superintendent, if you would have anything further to add.
Okay, thank you. And I will turn to Mr. Zimmer. Any other comments, Mr. Zimmer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, I think the director hit it right on about that timeline. However, engineering firms are busy doing all types of work right now, but it's hard to put a time frame on it exactly, but I think the 8 months or so would be fair.
Back to you, Councillor Coy.
Yes, I just have two more questions. So would the study indicate that the individual shouldn't have moved the swale, or number one?
Either Ms. Weens or Ms. Weens?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. I mean, I don't think that the study at this point in time is looking to, point fingers or blame as to whether or not that swale should have been moved or not. It would be looking at what are the drainage flows and the patterns today, looking at what the drainage issues are, and looking at mechanisms to resolve those drainage issues.
And my final comment to you, Mr. Mayor, through you, this will help Tony and Peter also, right?
I will go to Ms. Weens.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. We'd be looking at this as a drainage study. It would include probably a much larger area, but it would include both the east and west side of Far Road, and determine kind of what the watershed area is for the drainage in this area, and map that out so that everybody has a good understanding of what the what the drainage patterns are, what the watershed is. And then we can look at options in terms of resolving issues.
And one final question to you, Mr. Mayor, to the director. How many more homes are supposed to be in that subdivision?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, the report laid out what the total number of homes were. Let me just look at that again. So on the east side of Far Road, there were 57 lots, with 20 of those fronting Far and River Road. And on the west side of Far Road, there were 64 lots created, with 46 lots fronting on Far, River, Weber, and Victoria Roads. And there are still some vacant lots available for building permits that have frontage on those roads.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I believe I saw Councillor Hildebrand with his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. To you, Mr. Mayor. My concern is being an engineer and the results of a study can provide all kinds of solutions. However, we're dealing with private land. So from a legal aspect, I'd like to ask the CAO, where does this leave us? So the engineer comes up with all kinds of solutions and none of it is in our jurisdiction. So I'm confused. A, we could do a study, but what are the results going to be that we can implement? Because we don't have jurisdiction from what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Welcome to drainage, Councilor Hildebrand. I will go ahead, Mr. CAO.
So in the staff report, we clearly don't recommend you going forward with the $50,000 drainage study for exactly the reasons Councilor Hildebrand has just identified. So that is not our advice to you. However, or having said that, or to give you the contrary, if it is the wisdom of council that you want to engage in the drainage study, what I would suggest is you add the proviso that we make the study a public document and available to all residents, and we simply do it out of a sense of community benefit, I suppose, because really this would be spending tax dollars from other parts of town to deal with a localized issue over which we do not have jurisdiction. Now that you have every right to make that decision, you have the power to tell us to do that. If you read the report, we're suggesting you don't do that. However, if that is your will, we don't want to return to the jurisdiction and suggest somehow this has become a municipal issue. We lost that years ago when we lost the case, right? We've had no ability to influence how property is developed in this area or what's being done now on private lands. However, if you wish for us to obtain information through an engineering study, we don't know which parties it'll help, but at least we could do that in good faith. It nevertheless remains our advice to you that we not take that course of action. That's sort of, I think, where you're best. There's some tension there. You could argue that either way, and that's for. I'm glad I'm not on council. That is the wisdom of council. Good luck with that. But that is why you would do that. And you're right, Councilor Hildebrand. We don't have any direct skin in the game. Not as a municipal corporation. Do we as a community? Only the 7 of you can answer that.
Thank you. If I may interrupt, Councilor Hildebrand, I'd like to ask. I'd like to direct a question to Mike Zimmer, to Director Zimmer. So if the finding comes back, and this is all ifs because we don't know, but if the findings came back that the water should in fact flow to the west to Victoria Avenue, and if Ms. Sonfeld and her husband were to put the drain or put the berm back and the road did indeed flood, then the town could initiate for a petition for a drain, because we would have a road that didn't drain, and then that drain would go through. Please comment on those statements.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. There are 4 different ways to petition for a municipal drain, and one of the ways is the road authority has the authority to petition for a drain with 1 signature if the road authority feels that the road is being damaged by water. So, correct, 1 signature could initiate the engineer's report for a municipal drain.
Yes, and then even though that's on private land, that drain would go through, correct?
The engineer would determine that in his report, where the drain would go, and cost, benefits, and all those things would be laid out in the report.
Yes, thank you. Councilor Hildebrand, and that's only one scenario. There's a lot of ifs, and that's the whole thing is. But if we're going to get any answers to the ifs, we do need to do this study. Back to you, Councilor Hildebrand.
See, my concern is that we're setting a very dangerous precedent for the town of Pelham, taking on obligations we're not obligated to participate in. I understand doing a goodwill thing. I'm not against doing goodwill things, but from my background, this is something that is very difficult decision.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Oh, I see Ms. Weens, is your hand up, yes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
This drainage study may also be used to help inform, a future engineer's report, for example. So it could be used in that regard as well down the road.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Hildebrand or Councillor? And if not, I'll move on.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hahn.
Yes, through the mayor. So is there any reason why we can't have a discussion with the region and ask the region to share this expense of engineering report with us?
I will go to Mr. Zimmer.
If they want to just share the cost of this report, it would be up to council to, I would think, to ask the region to share. It's not something that we can legislate through the Drainage Act or anything else. That would be council's direction, I believe, to staff.
So that would be my opinion, is that instead of the town paying the full cost of the 50 or what have you, to see what the region would be able to pony up. Clearly I think at the end of the day, it would seem like they do have a part to play here, especially if they're going to put in a drain. So, and they also have engineers on staff that may even be able to take this on, and it wouldn't have to be farmed out. But it just hasn't been discussed tonight, which I'm a bit surprised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. CAO?
Well, to assist, what I would suggest, if that is the course of action council prefers, simply pass a motion yourselves requesting the region contribute 50% of the cost. This is an issue that really clearly illustrates the difference between municipalities as legal corporations and municipalities as communities. As a municipal corporation, we have no business whatsoever doing this. There's no corporate interest. Now, as a community, there may be. That's for some of you to decide. For the region, it's basically the same analysis. To reiterate, these are not, there's no municipal interest right now, and the road we're talking about in this case is a municipal road as opposed to a regional road. That being said, if they have some good, it doesn't hurt to ask. I'm not trying to dissuade that as an attempt, but council could simply, there's no point in directing staff. You may as well just say that if you're prepared to pay 50%, if the region is something of that nature, would be a reasonable motion. And then the clerk would automatically forward that on to regional council, and they'd get it, they'd probably consider it in January, I would think.
Councillor Hahn?
So yes, thank you. Further to that, then I would be of the mindset that it would make sense to set a limit as well. So 50% up to a particular amount. Because I mean, if the region has a different take on it and thinks it's a $100,000 report, and we half it's 50, then in the end it's a wash. So if we're looking at a 50, then half that would be 25. So I think in the motion we would allude to it to be up to a maximum of 20 or 25 or whatever half we believe would be. Thank you.
So that just to be clear then, Councillor, if the region doesn't put any money in and we decide that the RFP comes back at 50,000, then you would say don't do the study? Is that what you're saying?
At this stage, I would want to reach out to the region and find out what the region's prepared to do.
Yeah, but I just asked, I'm just asking, trying to find out if we reach out to the region and they say no, and we have a ceiling of $25,000 and the RFP comes over at 40 or 50, then are you saying that you wouldn't support that, or we should bring it back to council then?
I would bring it back to council. I would not be as supportive of that, no. But I think for the first stage for me is to do our due diligence and actually go and find out what the region's prepared to do, and then move to the next steps that would follow that, and I would make that determination at that time.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director, Director Weens. You were planning, I believe, to have a drainage meeting with, I guess, the residents or all of the people in Pelham with because of our tradition of having one every year, and we've skipped one. Is that still going to take place?
Ms. Weens?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, yes, we are wanting to do the drainage open house. We are updating the Big Creek drainage assessment for the Big Creek drain, and that will be information that we want to have at the drainage open house. And so we're probably looking at an open house in February, and that would be kind of the timing around that.
Councillor? I'm
The
sorry.
drainage open houses are, held to get information from people on municipal drains, if they're experiencing any issues, any maintenance that they need, and that kind of thing. So it's dealing with, open houses related to the existing municipal drains.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Olson, any more?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so would we have an opportunity at that time to bring this up at that meeting, or are you saying that it would be confined to the drain you mentioned?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I mean, it is to deal with municipal drain matters is what the open house is for. But if somebody were to come forward and want to get information on how to petition for a municipal drain and those kind of things, we can certainly talk about that, present that information at a drainage open house. The open house is, generally held so that people can bring whatever issues forward that they have as it relates to municipal drains. And, we can talk about how to petition for a drain, the process, who gets involved, what the role of the drainage engineer is, and what the role of the Court of Revision and the tribunal and the referee are, all of that information, if that is something that the community wants to have information on.
Councillor?
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Weens again, so would it be possible at that time to invite delegates from the region, appropriate delegates from the region and the Conservation Authority?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I think what Councillor Olson is looking at is something, bigger than what we would normally have at an open house, but it sounds like it is something that he's looking for is just a very, fulsome discussion on municipal drains and obligations and responsibilities of, both municipal, conservation authority, regional responsibilities around that. Understanding that drainage is, again, a very complex thing. And, what our roles and responsibilities are as it relates to drainage on private property.
Councillor Olson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's what I'm looking for is a more fulsome discussion, as you said. And I'd be in support of a drainage study or an engineering study of the drainage because we're talking about one corner of an issue here, and it's a fairly large issue on River Road on the other side, and there's some coming issues that I think should be we need to put something in the ground, put a stake in the ground and see exactly what we're going to do here, because I've seen engineering studies that actually say the water flows east and I can see it flowing west. So I think that's what I would like to see.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. As Ms. Weens has pointed out, this is, if indeed it doesn't concern a regional road. So I'm, as much as I'm not an expert, I can be 99.9% certain that the region is not going to be picking up any of this money. Weber Road and Victoria Avenue are high and dry, and have good ditches, and obviously it doesn't hurt to ask. I guess all I'm afraid of is that as we continue to not at least start this down the road tonight, the farmers' fields continue drained. Continues to get flooded. We don't get any closer to a resolution. It's just kick the proverbial can for many months, and we, at the end of those months, we are no closer to knowing at least options as to what can be done. I would hate to see the town get into legal action in this, and costing the landowner money, costing the town money, and it doesn't go anywhere. So obviously, council's council. I was kind of hoping, I was really hoping that we would initiate the engineering study so that this council could at least see options. I don't see how that can be determined as a waste of money, but I mean, as it isn't just the farmer. We're talking about all those houses on Weber Road, and it would be an expert that's making the determination, not town staff, not a farmer, someone, an engineering firm that deals in drainage on a day-to-day basis. But council decides what we shall do. Those are my thoughts. Any other questions or comments? I see Ms. Sonfeld.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Krebs. He mentioned there is no corporate interest in pursuing anything. However, if Far Road were to flood, would that be a corporate interest? That's my question.
To you, Mr. CAO.
Well, I sense this is about to turn in tenor and tone dramatically. The town did insist that the Sonnefelds remove the berm because it was going to cause flooding on a municipal road. And I think we all understand why private property owners can't take actions that flood public streets. So we can't countenance any course of action that will flood the road.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. CAO. Ms. Seinfeld?
However, when it comes to common law with drainage, the neighbor is not allowed to flood anyone's property. And to me, it appears the neighboring subdivision is flooding the ditch, as shown in the pictures, which is resulting in the flooding of our field, turning into a retention pond. So we are indeed allowed to protect our property through common law. That is been shown.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sonfeld. And this council is exactly why we should be doing a study. However, what is the resolution? Now, do we have a resolution before us, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yes, I do have a resolution to receive the presentation for information. Having said that, I have noted down all of the comments that council has made and the things that they may want to see. And I would suggest to council that perhaps they may want to consider an amendment, because as council knows, they are considering the 2022 capital budget, and that drainage, $50,000 drainage study is in there. And if council wants to add that the drainage study be completed and provided as a public document, to request the region to contribute 50%, to direct staff to come back to council for further direction should the RFP costs come back more than X dollars, and to direct the town clerk to circulate the said request to the region. I think that would be appropriate at the consent agenda when you are considering the $50,000 for the drainage study, unless the CAO has any other thoughts on that?
Any thoughts on hearing that, Mr. CAO?
I think the clerk, is that procedurally correct? Obviously, council needs to fill in the X's. We won't, but beyond that, that can work as far as process.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions on the resolution read by the Councillor Hildebrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. From a municipal standpoint, I understand the residents' concern, And so Councillor Hahn's motion with regards to splitting it 50-50 would be a motion I would readily approve.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Then I guess it's time to so one more time, Madam Clerk. So if we pass this resolution, we're gonna, is that instruct staff to ask the region to share the cost?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, right now we're just on the delegation. So the resolution before council, which is put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt, is simply be it resolved that council receive the delegation from Ms. Joyce Sonneveld regarding drainage issues at Weber Road and Far Road for information.
So
I have
it
made
needs
notes for when it would be appropriate at the consent agenda, should council wish to make these amendments.
Is anyone wishing to put forward the amendment put forward by Councillor Hahn, including Councillor Hahn?
Through you, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, my apologies for interrupting you. Those amendments would be most appropriate when considering the 2022 capital budget at the consent agenda. That 8.1 would just need to be lifted. So I can let council know that when we're at that part on the agenda. Right now, it's just simply to receive the delegation for information.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. Okay. So any other comments or questions? First of all, Ms. Sonnenfeld, thank you for your presentation tonight. And we will see as the night goes on what council, the decision council makes. Thank you. Okay, so any more discussion on the presentation? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. That brings us to our next registered delegate. That is Mr. Frank Adamson. And I will just ask Ms. Leach to bring him into the meeting. If council can just give us a moment.
Thank you.
And I will just ask Ms. Leach to bring. Thank you. I do see that our presenters are in the meeting. I would just remind them that they do have a 10-minute presentation window, and I will ring the bell at 8 minutes and then at 10 minutes again. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you for your patience, gentlemen. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, councilors and staff. We thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation tonight. James Federico, our engineer, as you can see, is with us. And we appreciate the opportunity to provide an update on the Pelham arches tonight. As you know, the iconic arches designed by Todd Barber at Forest Green Creations for the Summerfest event some years ago have had a very high profile, receiving an Agri-Community Design Award. They've been prominently featured in photos from events in town, especially the annual Summerfest celebration, Christmas in Pelham. The Rotary Club have used them to light up purple for World Polio Day on a few occasions, and prominently displayed on the Town of Pelham Community Guide over a number of years. They, more importantly, have served a functional purpose, serving as cover and providing shade to the volunteer bartenders at the Summerfest Festival, and those folks are from the Lions Club, from Kinsman, and from Rotary. Community leaders, the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, the Kinsman Club, the Fonthill Volunteer Firefighters Association, the Niagara Region Police Association, the Canada Summer Games Council, and prominent businesses have expressed their support for the reconstruction of the iconic Pelham Archway in downtown Fonthill. As you know, 300 supporters attended the Raise the Arches social in October 2019 in the Accursi Room at the Meridian Community Center. Collectively, they have already donated $100,000 towards the construction of the arches. That's money in the bank. We have reached out to our sponsors to provide an update and to assess their support of the reconstruction. None of them have asked for a return of their funding, and this just wanted to know the status of the project. A number of gone so far as to indicate that they would provide additional funding if council approves this project. For example, Lachetta Homes has agreed to double their contribution and to source a crane for the erection of the arches at their cost. Kirk Zavitz from Zavcor Trucking, again, has agreed to do the same thing and also provide transportation of the steel structure from Vineland to the site in Pelham as an in-kind donation, and has also doubled their contribution. I had the opportunity of meeting with James Frederico a week ago after the report was into you folks. And his firm, Frederico and Associates Engineering, has generously offered to waive their fees of $6,500 for the engineered design, and more importantly, to have agreed to provide oversight of the subtrades during the site preparation and erection of the arches. This is a role that Bill Gibson and Bill Sheldon were going to undertake, and they have had to step back. So I'm very pleased that James has agreed to step up. We've reached out to other potential donors who have indicated their desire to support this project. A number of our donors, including Greenfield Services, and that's the guy that does all the sidewalk cleaning in town, Quick Fit Niagara, that would be me, Willowbrook Nursery, have all indicated a desire to double their platinum level donations. Costs have escalated significantly since we were last before Council, March the 20th of 19, and of 2020, I should say. The cost to build 3 sets of arches now stands at approximately $173,300. To build 4 sets, as what was there in the past, would increase the cost by another $57,792. However, as you, I think, are now aware, and I've just become aware of this since we submitted this for this presentation, the province of Ontario has established a major street grant initiative with the grants of between $25,000 to $250,000 to reimburse projects between January the 1st, 2022 and December 21st, 2022. This grant is for communities who wish to revitalize neighborhood main streets with a healthy retail mix while generating local economic opportunities designed to draw visitors and to increase local vibrancy. We believe that the arches can meet this qualifications, and I believe staff do as well. If successful, we would be able to resurrect all 4 sets of arches. Both the Rotary Club and the Summerfest Committee supports this application by the town of Pelham. If unsuccessful, we are proposing a modification of the original design to 3 sets of arches and have them centered, which would mean moving them in 16 feet from Pelham Street and from Town Square west of the Town Municipal building. So each one of those spans at the base is 32 feet in length, and there's 4 of those. As well, we were asked to increase the height of these and the width, and James has done that. So that would, and again, both the fire chief and the Director of Public Works are supportive of this redesign. It will allow for unobstructed turning of large trucks and the fire department's aerial ladder truck. It will allow for unobstructed turning of large vehicles as well. We have consulted with all of the major donors, the Rotary Club and the Summerfest Committee, and they all support this redesign. John Langendoon from Willowbrook Nurseries, who again is a platinum level supporter and agreed to double his amount, will also replant trees if the arch's footprint is changed, and he will do that again as an in-kind donation. The year 2022 is the 10th anniversary of the Summerfest Festival and an opportunity to unveil the new arches. As well, a once-in-a-lifetime event is taking place in Niagara next summer, and that is the Canada Summer Games, which can bring a financial contribution towards the cost of the new arches of $10,000 to provide shade, sails, and lighting via a grant from the Regional Municipality of Niagara, if they are built. If the arches are rebuilt, this location will be used for the start of the torch run and celebration hosted by Summer Canada Games Committee, the Town of Pelham, Canada Steamship Lines, the Summerfest Committee, and the Rotary Club of Fawn Hill. This event will be held on Saturday, July the 16th, 2022, and will add vibrancy and excitement to the Summerfest Festival taking place at the same time. We didn't plan that, it's just the way it worked out. So there's 12 torch runs in 12 municipalities. And the reason I mentioned Canada Steamship Lines is that that torch is being lit in Ottawa. It's making its way to Montreal. It's being placed on the Canada Steamship Line ship, the Welland, and coming down the Welland Canal and to Niagara. The Rotary clubs in the region are playing a major role in the 12 torch runs in each municipality, and are commissioning Canada Summer Games Rotary T-shirts with 60% of the sales for the Rotary clubs and 40% of Canada Summer Games. Proceeds from the Rotary beer sales for the cycling event, which will be in August, also to start and end under the arches, and T-shirt sales can be used to provide significant funding of the arches. They will be sold at our booth at the Canada Day celebration at Summerfest and during the cycling event, and we expect to raise significant dollars from that. As well, they're allowing us, all the Rotary clubs, the 12 in the Niagara region, to host beer tent at their site in St. Catharines at Brock University over a 2-week period, which is going to raise significant dollars for charitable work within the Niagara region. We're very happy to be a part of that. So in order to proceed and have the arches in place by June 2022, we must have approval at this time. The order for the steel frame construction and a 35% deposit needs to be in play in January 2022 in order to be ready for construction in May, June of next year. Without this approval by council, we will not be able to move forward. It would be helpful if council approved a bridge loan of $30,000 to the Summerfest committee for construction of the arches to be paid by September 2022. In my submission, I put that down as a grant. We are not asking for that. But again, this is to do with the T-shirt sales, beer sales, and so on and so forth, and the fact that we're going to have to pay these contractors prior to those monies being raised. We're very confident that that will happen, however. In regards to that funding as well, and additional funding to go to back to 4 arches, if we do receive provincial funding for the Main Street grant, we won't have to do that. It was indicated in the original approval of the arches some years ago now that we'd be responsible for any building permits, and we would ask that be waived. I understand it's not a whole bunch of money at any rate, but it shows some good faith on the part of council in the town. I'd like to turn it over to James right now in regards to the design of the arches, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. And I'm at 10 minutes and 18 seconds. Go ahead, James.
Well, I mean, I don't have too much additional to add beyond what's been discussed before. I guess, you know, for us, this is a project that we had completed almost all the engineering prior to, prior to kind of March of 2021. So, you know, detailed design is done on our part. The decision of 3 or 4 arches can be, you know, made almost up until, obviously, aside from ordering and those kinds of timelines, the decision to put 3 to 4 can almost be made up until start of construction. You know, we can apply for kind of both plans and make the choice pretty late in the game. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just glad that this is getting picked back up again, and I'm glad that the community is stepping up to see this done, because I think it's, you know, it's really a signature feature of the town, and I'm happy to see it go back up.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. Turn to council. Any questions or comments to the presenters? And I see Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I see this as really falling into place, because we've got the rejuvenation of our downtown corner. The Peace Park, that looks great. Town Hall looks great with all the new gardens and greenery we have there. And I think this could be part of a big business revival for the community. So I would be in support of it. As far as the aesthetics go, I'm not an expert, but I can imagine what this would look like. I'm in favor of the 3 arches. I think they're a little more balanced than the 4, and leave a little bit more room for the in the entranceway to the town hall there. But I'm all in favor of whatever you come up with, because I think this would be a great addition to the town.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? I see Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There's talk in there about money for the summer games, a $10,000 grant. I was under the impression that we had received, I think it was that amount of money, and it had been used for paving the Steve Bauer Trail, and that there would not be any further money coming. Could someone comment on that?
And I see Director of PW, Public Works, Mr. Marr, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The funding for the Steve Bauer Trail was a grant that came through the Canada Summer Games directly. This is a grant that was retained through the region of Niagara, and it was in support of building community spaces to host the games. So this is an additional $10,000 grant that would be used for the shade sails, as well as some lighting for the arches. But that being said, the arches need to be in place prior to us carrying forward and receiving that grant. It has been awarded to us. The arches need to be realized before we'll get the money.
Councillor? Oh, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wink.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, this has been brought to us several times in our term of council. I know that there's been some reluctancy with respect to construction and the fact that the other arches fell down in a windstorm, and the original intent was never to be a 10-year lifespan of that construction. But now this construction is not going to be wood framed or whatever. It's going to be done with steel. This will probably last longer than my lifetime and whatever. So I'm in full support of these arches.
Okay, thank you. Any Councillor Hildebrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The question I have for myself is, are we all understanding the time and season we're in right now? It's when you see the news reports and the reports we're going to get in the next couple of minutes, that leaves me in large question of whether this event will even be pulled off. But let's leave that aside for now, understanding the times and season. I'd like to go to the Director of Public Works. Have you seen approved engineering design drawings for this project? Have they come to your office?
Mr. Mark?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, the engineering department has not received stamped approved engineering drawings yet. We've had the ability to be able to view the conceptual drawings and some of the engineering drawings that have been completed to date. My understanding is that the detailed design is, if not complete, nearing completion. So the next step from an engineering perspective would be engineering staff department would receive stamped engineering drawings by a qualified professional engineer in the province of Ontario, and those would be reviewed from the engineering side of things with respect to the layout for the utilities and the public infrastructure to make sure there's no conflicts and proper clearances are in place for traffic, that type of thing.
Councillor?
Continue on to Mr. Adamson. How do you plan on ordering steel unless you got the final design?
So the design was a design that was put forth by James Frederico, and GGS has that design, and they have looked at it and they have costed it. It's at a cost of $75,000 in today's figures. That could change tomorrow, up or down, probably up. But yeah, those are all based, and their engineers have also looked at the design, and they can build to the specification that Mr. Frederico has put together, and I asked him to maybe add to that.
Councillor?
Like the Director of Public Works said, he hasn't seen the drawings and he hasn't approved them and they haven't gone through the town. That's just my comment. To me, this is an image project. And the image that you're projecting right now for those arches, I mean, this is the fourth time you come through with different designs and different projections for these hoops. I think for myself, when we have a plan come forward to us, I need to see a picture of what the image of those arches would really look like. And all you're providing is this cross bracing structure of a hoop design. That to me is not the image I'm looking for to be a permanent image in the center of town. So based on that, I need more information before I'll approve these arches to order steel, because I want to see conceptually from an artist's perspective what it looks like. This is like a sign going up in the building because it's a sign going up in the center of town. So we need to take time to do this properly, because it's going to last, like Councillor Wink says, it's going to last past my lifetime. And I want to be sure that I'm approving something that looks right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Frank, any comments on the councillor's comments?
I'll reserve comments for a minute if anybody else has questions.
Oh, okay, thank you. Any other councillor comments or questions on the presentation? Not seen any. Okay, Councillor Wink.
So if there's no further discussion on this, this is the final kick at the can for this council. You know, either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. I'd like to make a motion that council endorse construction of the arches as presented by Mr. Adamson, subject to approval of engineering design by town staff, and that the town provide a $30,000 bridge loan to be repaid by December 2022, and that the town waive the building fee for the arches.
Okay. And do you have a seconder, Councillor? Councillor Kaur, are you seconding?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just writing down what Councillor Wink has stated to replace the motion that has been presented in the e-scribe. And what I'm seeing that Councillor Wink and seconded by Councillor Kaur is that certainly to receive the delegation presentation from Mr. Frank Adamson for information, and that council would support the arches and would provide a $30,000 bridge loan to be repaid by 2022, and that council would also waive building fees, building permit fees. I'm hearing that is what the motion is.
Councillor Wink?
Yeah, just to add for the benefit of some of our other councillors, that the subject to approval of engineering design by town staff.
Thank you. And thank you. I've also noted and that any drawings are to be subject to the approval of engineering staff. Are there any other debate, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I'm sure there is. So Councillor Wink, you're good with that motion now then?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So now back to council now for discussion. And I see Councillor Hahn.
Yes, thank you, through the mayor. So with regards to the payback of the 30K loan before December 22nd or end of 22nd year, then you said that there is a Main Street revitalization or something of that effect. So that would be applied for if it hasn't already. Perhaps there she is. Our treasurer can speak to that, and if it's already been applied for, and the timing on that. So if we should, we would be applying for that, or would that be applied for by the Arches Committee? How does that work, please?
Yes. So through you, Mr. Mayor. The Director of Recreation and Culture and Wellness, Vicki, and myself, we met with the program advisor from the Main Street grant, and the arches definitely qualify for this grant. The grant is for anything above the ground, so all the steel pertains to that. The grant due date is February the 1st. And then within a month, we would be notified if the arches would qualify, that the $30,000 would qualify for the grant money. So we're in the process of doing the application right now. Not only are we doing it for the arches, we're also doing it for additional fencing and other things that we want to enhance in the downtown area.
Thank you. So then further to that, so either way, so failing that, if we aren't for some reason, we probably will be, but if we're not successful with that grant, we would still see the money returned then to the town then by December 22nd, right? The end of the year. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, realizing the time and season we're in and the construction schedules you may be facing, what happens? Are you still going to put them up if we approve it, no matter when they go up?
Is that James, Mr. Federico, or did you have your hand there?
No, sorry, I turned the volume up on my phone.
Oh, okay, then I'll return to Frank. Frank?
Well, yeah, I mean, we would like to see these up, but I mean, there's a obviously some timing here in regards to summer games are never coming back. I mean, we have that opportunity for that $10,000. We have more importantly, we have the opportunity to start the torch run, which I understand the mayor is going to be leading from the arches and returning there again. The bicycle races and so on and so forth. It is our 10th anniversary, so we really would like to see these up by June, July of 2022, and I think that's doable. Certainly, GGS, the company that would manufacture the steel, can meet that timeline. They realize that that's important. And in regards to Councillor Hildebrand's comments in regards to the arches and wanting to see pictures and so on and so forth, I just draw your attention to the June 3rd council meeting and the presentation and what was endorsed by this council already. And that is that it be resolved the council endorses the fully funded project as proposed by the Fond Hill Rotary Club and the Summerfest Committee to fully fund the initiative and to replace the arches over Pelham Town Square with no financial impact to the Pelham ratepayers, which proposal includes a fully engineered design, construction, and future maintenance of the feature, and construction will be completed in full consultation with the Town of Pelham staff and will be subject to necessary permits. So that's what we're doing now. That was June 3rd, 2019. And it says, by copy of this correspondence, our Director of Public Works, Jason Marr, is asked to work with the Rotary Club and Summerfest Committee to ensure compliance with the resolution as it relates to the engineered design, construction, and maintenance components. So essentially what you have said already is that the arches are approved so long as we go through the through your Director of Public Works and that we have engineered drawings that are stamped and he approves them. So that's where we are tonight, and that's what we are requesting you to do.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Adamson. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the vote on Councillor Wink's motion.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, wait, Councillor Wink?
Councillor Hahn's got her hand
up. I'm sorry. Oh, way over in the corner. Go ahead, Councillor Hahn.
Thank you. Just one more question, actually, through the mayor, and that is with regards to, just so I'm clear. So it was a four hoop, right? A four cross, and now it's going to be a 3, correct? Is that what this motion is approving? It's the 3, not the 4.
Frank?
Yeah, that's what we're requesting right now. I mean, if this grant comes through, and certainly we will work with the town on that grant. But if that grant comes through, my suggestion is that we ask for enough money to pay for the 4th set of arches, and it would come from that grant. We're confident that we can raise the money, as I've indicated, to replace the 3 arches at a cost of around $173,000.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, in my opinion, decorating wise, it's odd numbers, so I would go with a 3 over a 4. Also, I like the idea of it being recessed back a little bit too for ensuring that there's nobody going to clip a corner, right? So it's back in a little way. So from a safety perspective, and larger vehicles making that turn, it would make it a little easier for them. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I scanned the ban a little better this time. Any other future questions or any questions or comments? Not seeing any. I will turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Staff had worked on some wording as well for this motion with respect to the grant. So if I may just read in, I've used what Councillor Wing has also indicated, but if I may just read it into the record for clarity and just to receive Councillor Wing's agreement, that would be appreciated. And it's be it resolved that Council receive the delegation presentation from Frank Adamson, Vice Chair of the Summerfest Advisory Committee regarding the Pelham Arches for information. And that Council support, endorse, and approve the revised Pelham Arches design being 3 arches instead of 4. And that Council support and approve the requested $30,000 bridge loan to be repaid by December 31st, 2021 to the Pelham Summerfest Committee and to be used for the construction of the said Pelham Arches, and that the 2022 operating budget be amended to include a $30,000 municipal bridge loan expenditure to the benefit of Pelham Summerfest Advisory Committee for the Pelham Arches project, and a $30,000 provincial grant revenue from the My Main Street grant, and that Council directs staff to apply for the My Main Street grant for the reimbursement of the $30,000 for the municipal bridge loan, and that Council waive the building fees for the said project, and that Council approve the construction of the said Pelham Arches subject to the approval of the Director of Public Works, Director of Community Planning and Development, and Fire Chief upon receipt of satisfactory drawings and plans as requested. I just asked Councillor Wink if he's satisfied with this.
Councillor Wink, is that what you intended?
Make a long story short, yes.
Okay, thank you. And Frank, after hearing it, are you in agreement with this motion?
Delighted, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I will now, I see Councillor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I might suggest we were talking about 2022 as the date for repayment.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you. 2022. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Darn, I thought we repaid it already.
Okay, Madame, I see, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In that there was quoted the amount of $30,000 coming from the grant. I just want to be sure that that would be the maximum amount of money coming from the grant for that project.
To the Director of Finance.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're also including new lights for the arches. We currently have lights that are about 10 years old, and we want to include the new lights for the arches as part of the grant submission.
Thank you, but that would be included in the $30,000?
No, it's another $20,000 for that.
So that would be $50,000.
Right. So
if we get the grant, it would be $50,000 going towards it, not the 30 that was referenced.
Right, but right now we can still use the current lights that we have, but because the lights are getting old and we want to take advantage of the grant, we're putting in the new lights into the grant application. But if we didn't get the money for the lights, we still have lights that we can use, but we're just taking advantage of upgrading our lights.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
No.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry.
I thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the Summerfest Committee, on behalf of the Rotary Club and all the other service clubs, and everyone that's donated at this point in time will continue to do so. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and happy holidays, all of you, and not to be outdone by David.
Thank you very much, and most of council is waiting for the arrival of the arches to raise again on South Pelham Street. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just asked Ms. Leach to remove our presenters. That does bring us to our next item, which is the report from our regional councilor, and we do have Regional Councilor Houston here with us tonight. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Diana, are you still there?
I'm still here.
You're a very patient lady. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, I will try to. Can I share my presentation, or clerk, maybe would you want to share my presentation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the clerk's department is certainly happy to share your presentation if that is your preference.
Okay, sounds good. Ooh. Okay, thanks everyone. You can advance to the next slide. I think everyone knows who I am.
Thank you.
Okay, so just as an overview, I'm going to talk about just the 4 topics tonight, being the levy budget, the regional transit governance model, the climate change action plan that was recently passed, and a new advisory committee that was passed at the region. Next slide. So in developing our levy budget, of course, we have input from our agencies, boards, and commissions. The NRP came in at about 1.8%. They primarily had operational pressures due to an increase in service demands. They had even more calls over the previous year, about 3,700 more calls again this year. They're seeing trends of an escalation in calls for service. Also an increase in homicides, fatal motor collisions, and violent crime violations. But the budget pressures also saw increases in staffing, salaries, and benefits, and also demands on long-term disability and WSIB claims. So in addition to that, they're also seeing some budget pressures relating to fuel price increases, some software licensing increases, and they did have some funding decreases that they experienced. Niagara Regional Housing saw some budget increases due to some housing programs and services, as well as some utility costs and staffing requirements. However, they also saw an increase in terms of rent revenues. So their budget was actually able to come in as a positive. The NPCA had a couple budget pressures related to salaries and benefits, operational priorities that are connected to the core hazard management mandate, as well as some capital investment pressures. They're looking to optimize self-generating revenues as we go forward that will offset some of the levy requirements, and they came in at a 0.1% on the levy impact. And then of course court services, which is, I'm sure all of you are aware, is the provincial offenses court, primarily acts as a revenue generating source for us in collecting fines. I just wanted to point out here that if the Niagara Transit Commission does attain the triple majority, we will see it added as a separate agency with a budget similar to that, similar to the budgets that are handled through the NRP, the NRH, or the NPCA. So I'll be reporting on that in the future. Our overall, it had the agency boards and commissions came in at 1.8%. Next slide, please, Holly. Thank you. Regional departments actually fell fairly close to budget guidance, around 2%. We did ask for an additional 1% to dedicate towards capital financing. So it doesn't state it here, but the regional's capital financing was at 0.85%, which does add up to the 1% if we add in the capital of the agencies, boards, and commissions. However, council also had a number of priorities that were outside of the original budget, which are being added on, and that includes the hospital contributions, including the South Niagara and West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, being $700,000 this year, and with an annual contribution of $2.2 million until 2055. We also gave $1 million to Hospice Niagara and about $220,000 to McNally House. So these all added 0.48% budget pressure into the regional department and priorities, leaving it at 2.55%. Next slide, please. So if we add these up, our budget, our levy pressure was around 4.35%. We did tap into our taxpayer reserve fund to try to bring this number down. So we added an additional $6 million into the budget from the reserve, and this brought it down to 2.87, which we ratified last week. So our levy budget was approved last week at 2.87%. Next slide, please. So next, I wanted to highlight the regional transit governance model. As I'm sure you're aware, we had a nearly unanimous support at the November 25th meeting. So the next steps in terms of uploading the transit service across Niagara would require a majority support of our local tier municipalities, as well as it must include a majority of the electorate. The revised model primarily offers increased service in terms of our rural areas, better connectivities across municipal borders, and a governance board with representation from all of our municipalities. It's also going to have an advisory committee that has specific representation of groups such as our senior population, Indigenous groups, youth, different voices that the advisory committee felt was important to be informing what transit looks like in Niagara. As of now, we have had 5 municipalities endorse the new governance model, including St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, Port Colborne, Fort Erie, and Grimsby. Niagara-on-the-Lake is voting on it tonight. And I believe Thorold is on Tuesday, so we'll know tomorrow if it has attained the triple majority after the Thorold Council meeting. Next slide, please. We also passed a climate change action plan. So in September, we declared a climate emergency and also directed staff to conduct a review of our initiatives and plans in the management, mitigation, and adaptation of climate change in Niagara, but also research best practices across Ontario relating to mitigation and adaptation of climate change, providing a report on the upcoming meeting to present the findings, and to host the climate summit for the purpose of evaluating best practices. So that did come back to council, where we determined that we would be hiring a climate change specialist that would lead and develop key climate action plans in collaboration with our municipalities as well as the Conservation Authority. We will be developing a corporate climate change action inventory and a team that's going to be focused on that, as well as a regional climate change working group with stakeholders, and I expect our municipalities to be included in that. And then we'll be holding a climate summit in the second quarter of 2022. So I think there's some exciting action happening around that, and will inform a lot of the work probably for next year and future councils in terms of what comes out of that. And then the final, next slide, please, Holly. The final item I just wanted to highlight is we also developed a regional chairs youth advisory panel as a result of a delegation from the Niagara Falls Youth Advisory Committee. So that committee has now been formed. We do have a representative from Pelham, Natalie Anderson, and there's one representative from each municipality. The first meeting was held on November the 30th. It was primarily an orientation meeting, so there wasn't a lot of business held, but I'm participating in that committee as well, and I was also part of the evaluation process, and I can tell you there was significant interest in terms of the applicants for issues that related to the environment, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as mental health concerns. So I think that speaks loudly to what the work of this committee will potentially hold over the next year. And that is it. You can go to the next slide. Next slide is for questions. Since I have 1 minute, been timing myself, which I'm sure Mayor Junkin will be happy about. I just wanted to highlight, we did also approve as part of the new official plan work guidance around the natural heritage component, where we're going above and beyond the provincial minimums that are recommended. And we also approved guidance in terms of the urban and rural boundaries. So that was on our last planning meeting, and I'm sure that our commissioner would have been involved in those discussions. That's it. Any questions, anyone?
Thank you, Diana, for that report. Budget, and more budget this time of year at the region and at the municipal level. Councillors, upon hearing this report, any questions or comments? Councillor Hahn.
There we go. Yes, thank you, through the mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Diana. Just wondering, with regards to the money that the province has, I guess, allotted to the various regions who had COVID vaccination clinics. My understanding is the region is kind of sitting on those funds, and then the region then decides how to dole it out. That's my understanding. So I'm just wondering if you've made a push, or if you made an ask, I guess, to get our piece of the puzzle for the use of the MCC for the past year, if those funds will be then coming to Pelham.
So my understanding is those conversations are currently underway, and I know Pelham staff are certainly engaged on that. I haven't been involved in that, but if I need to get involved, I've already told staff to let me know, and I'm happy to get involved where I need to.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I think that would be appreciated, because that's a significant difference in our taxes. I mean, it could be very significant. So bring down a point or two. So yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments on Ms. Hewson's report? That must have been very clear, Diana.
If not, I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays, and it was nice to see you as always.
And then the best of the holiday season to you, Ms. Hewson. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the December 20th, 2021 report submitted by Regional Councilor Hewson be received for information. Chief Mayor, if there's any other discussion, or shall I call the vote?
We'll see one last time. Any discussion on the presentation? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And this vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to the staff presentations, and our first presentation is from our fire chief, Chief Lindberner.
Now, Chief, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, SLT. Just a few numbers to run by you tonight. We get some very difficult days ahead of us. Our variants are moving through our communities, throughout the province, throughout the world. And as of today, Pelham has a total case count of 724, total active cases of 32. In the region, we had 74 new cases today for a total of 19,833. 750 active cases and 444 deaths across the province. 3,783 new cases today. We were over 4,000 yesterday. Traditionally, Mondays are lower because of Sunday staffing issues and that. So I would anticipate that number to be a fair bit higher tomorrow. And we're sitting at 10,113 deaths in the province. Our hospital admissions is kind of a good point, or a little bit better as a result of all these cases. We're not seeing a really sharp increase in hospital admissions. 284 admissions, out of those 164 in ICU and 109 are in ICU on ventilators. Last week, a week ago, we weren't a whole lot further away from these numbers, so that's a good sign. Canada-wide, 1,891,573 total. Of those, 1,797,486 are resolved. We passed the 30,000 threshold for deaths, 30,048. Niagara Region's case doubling time has dropped down to 184 days. Our reproduction rate is at 1.4. Positivity is increased to 4%. Our variance concern definitely is starting to change. Our Delta variant represents 77.8% of our cases. Currently, with the Omicron, it's hasn't been detected officially, but 22.2% are unknown. We classify them as, or they classify them as unknown. Our infection spread continues. Close contact is at 64.5%. Predominantly, they're 20 to 30-year-olds are our big target group, and they represent the least vaccinated in our area also. Niagara Public Health is working with 11 active outbreaks. They've resolved 542. As far as vaccinations go, now that we have our children aged 5 to 11, it's increased our numbers. We're getting there. But first dose, 4.6%. Second dose, 76.1%. Children aged 5 to 11 is 35%. And booster shots for 80 years and plus is up to 44%. So there's a real focus on our seniors. Ontario, first dose, 3%. Second dose, 88%. Canada, first dose, 5.37%. And our second dose, 78.58%. Our provincial indicators are all in red. The only shining light there is our hospital systems. They haven't been heavily taxed as yet. And the province has announced some stricter measures, which most of them came into effect at 12:01 on Sunday morning. Some of the key ones on that is the capacity at large events has been reduced to 50%. Our QR codes requirements starts January the 4th. No food or drink will be served at indoor venues such as hockey, basketball, concerts, movie theaters, etc., etc. So we've put the communication out and some signage at the MCC, so no one can bring in, their Timmies or their favorite bits of food and that. The only exception to that is our athletic hydration. So our athletes are allowed to bring something in, but everything else is shut down. And starting today, all town employees are encouraged to use the level 1 blue masks, which look like the medical masks, and mainly because they're triple layered. We're trying to discourage the use of cloth masks because most of the cloth masks are single layered. So far better protection with the triple layered mask. So, and that's the end of my report. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for that report, Chief. And I see Councillor Hildebrand.
Right here, just to the fire chief. Thank you for the report. One of the things, might be a suggestion, is I talked to some seniors today because they were wondering, how do I get a QR code? And that would be a valuable thing to know. And one of the things we suggested was the library, and the library provides excellent service as well as the MCC to give people that don't have a computer or all the technology to get a QR code, unless you have some other better recommendations than I have.
Well, it's true. The MCC has through you, Mr. Mayor, the MCC has been doing a great job. They've set up a separate desk with a computer to help out as many people, not necessarily just our seniors, but whoever might require those services. Library is really stepping it up. And I might encourage that family members and friends, neighbors, help your seniors out. the guy that lives next door that doesn't have a computer, it's pretty easy for a neighbor to spend 5 minutes to help his neighbor out. So encourage our citizens to share that information and reach. I wouldn't think it'd be difficult or hard to believe that someone would turn down assistance if someone asked. So if you need a QR code and you don't have the ways of printing it or producing it, then reach out. Somebody will help you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. CAO, you had your hand up also?
Yes, well, proud to announce and to be very clear, we are providing that service for our residents at the MCC. I was in there Friday afternoon and I watched a staff member help a resident who clearly was not able to obtain her own QR code. January 3rd, in line with the provincial rules, it becomes mandatory to have that QR code. And so it will be mandatory at the municipal facilities, assuming they're still open and able to be open, which at this point in time is an open question. However, we are providing that service and we have staff there who are taking the time out to help our residents. So very happy with that. You don't have to be wanting to come into the MCC. If you simply want that help, come to the MCC and staff will assist you.
Great, thank you for that clarification, Mr. CAO. One question to the chief I have. I had that one phone call which I passed on to you. Is there a shortage of the booster shots, or is it just a case of getting them distributed to the right people?
Mr. Mayor, to answer to the first part that you had reached out, it's up to the care facility to organize that vaccine, the booster. So the facility that you called me out particular, they need to step up and organize that through public health. So it might be a staffing issue.
Okay.
But it is available. As far as the vaccinations, what I've understood, it's really coming down to staffing and organizing. We've been told that the region is trying to minimize the small sites as the MCC because it's only an 8 injection site. And they're working on organizing mass sites. So the Scotia Centre in Niagara Falls could become or will become a 40 injection site. So it's easier for them to manage their people and their inventories when they have one mass site rather than multiple small sites. So it's not so much a shortage as it is a resource problem, organizing everything.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Chief Limburner. So with what you just stated about a mass site, does that mean that the MCC won't likely be offering like an all ages vaccination site in the near future?
Chief?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we've been informed is that the January dates that were previously scheduled will be canceled, and the focus will be turned towards the Scotia Centre in Niagara Falls. So yes, the MCC will not be hosting any site during the month of January.
Councillor?
Thank you for that, but I think that's a sad thing to hear, as not everybody has easy transit to go to Niagara Falls or St. Catharines for a shot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any more comments or questions on the Chief's report? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hum, seconded by Councillor Court. Be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from B. Limburner, Fire Chief and Community Emergency Management Coordinator for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, in case there's any other discussion before I call the vote.
I'll ask one last time. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Court.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. That brings you to your next presentation, which is from our CAO, Mr. David Cribbs.
Mr. CAO, you have the floor.
Good evening, Council. Part and parcel, or following the Fire Chief's presentation, for clarity, we are no longer offering food and beverage service inside the MCC. At the moment, that's being done as a necessary health measure pursuant to the new rules. That is going to have some sort of impact, of course, on our bottom line, but we won't know how much. Well, we'll take the revenues right now down to zero, and we don't know how long that'll be in effect. We'll provide you with some future reporting when we have better ideas. So that's one thing to identify for you. Secondly, and to reiterate, January 3rd, QR codes become mandatory to enter a number of facilities. And while town staff will continue to assist people with so doing, we certainly encourage everyone to who has the technical capacity to download the relevant software on their phones or portable devices. And failing that, we will help at the MCC, and the library will continue to help. And importantly, today, the region of Niagara, along with a number of other employers in the area, has instructed staff to commence working from home, as was previously the case during the earlier heights of the pandemic. Tomorrow, we will be issuing a similar order to our staff, those who are capable of working from home, of course. Last week, we did recommend on Friday for anyone who is commencing holidays to take their computers home with them. And we'll be reiterating that message tomorrow, but by close of business tomorrow, we'll be instructing our office staff who are capable of so doing to work from home. And the senior leadership team will be working on work schedules so that there are a minimum number of humans present in the office over the holidays and going forth thereafter until such time as the health conditions improve. We will discuss and review both as a leadership team and as an EOC tomorrow, whether or not we'll be closing town hall, and if so, when. The region is closed to the public at this time and will continue to be. So I guess you've heard it here first. That's the sort of breaking news component and where our corporate focus will be as a leadership team tomorrow morning. Subject to questions, that is my report. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. CAO. Questions or comments on the CAO's report? Not seeing any. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from D. Cribbs, Chief Administrative Officer, for information to you, Mr. Mayor, in case there's any other discussion.
Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next presentation, and this is being presented by the Treasurer, the Director of Public Works, and the Asset Management and GIS Analyst, and this is the Asset Management Plan. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to share my screen and start off with the presentation. The Director of Public Works, myself, the Manager of Engineering, Derek Young, we will do the presentation, and then John Razzo, who is the Asset Management and GIS Analyst, will do a demonstration of the software that we have for the Asset Management Plan. So we're very excited to be here tonight. As you have the report in your package, and you can see all the work that's been done. So we're just very, very excited to be able to present this. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Oops. Okay, hold on. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so the agenda that we have for tonight is what is an asset management plan, the purpose of the asset management plan, the regulation 588-17. We're going to talk about the core assets inventory, the core asset estimated replacement cost, the average asset age, the present asset condition, and the financial forecasting of the roads, and then the demonstration. So what is an asset management plan? It is a strategic document that states how the town's assets are to be managed over a period of time. The plan describes the characteristics and condition of infrastructure assets, the level of service expected from them, planned actions to ensure the assets are providing the expected level of service, and financing strategies to implement the planned actions. What is the purpose of an asset management plan? It is to ensure that the town is well positioned for current and future grant programs and regulations by meeting the requirements of the Ontario Ministry of Infrastructure Building Together Guide for Municipal Asset Management Plans. This is really important because all of our grants, the majority of our grant applications, they do ask if you do have an asset management plan. And if this is not in place, we will not qualify for certain grants. It's also to establish a baseline of current asset management practices to inform a work plan for continually improving asset management, more accurately quantifying the infrastructure deficit and investment gap. And that's important because, what the province wants to know, by having all of these asset management plans from the municipalities, they want to know what the infrastructure deficit is on the deferred maintenance. And I think that this will help them inform the level of funding that they're currently providing to the province. In 2021, the gas tax was doubled in 2021 in order to help the municipalities meet their capital needs. And the OSIF funding for 2022 more than doubled as well. So I think the province is aware of the shortfall in the investment gap, and these asset management plans definitely will help to inform those decisions and hopefully provide, better funding for the municipalities. It also demonstrates long-term asset care and sustainability, supports the development of improved practices that clarify and justify funding requirements, and it provides increased transparency related to the town's asset management practices, challenges, and opportunities. The Ontario Regulation 588-17, on December 17th, 2017, the OREG 588-17 was released to help municipalities better understand what important services need to be supported over the long term while identifying infrastructure challenges and opportunities and finding innovative solutions. This is the timeline that the province put forward. On July 1st, 2019, the town of Pelham finalized the strategic asset management policy. This was approved by council, so that was completed on time. The next milestone is July 1st of 2022, and that is to approve the asset management plan for the core assets only and identifying the level of services and the cost to maintain the level of services. Currently, the town is on schedule to meet this deadline. And then July 1st, 2024 will be all of the other assets will complete the asset management plan, and that includes the facilities. And on July 1st of 2024, it finalizes the asset management plan that identifies all the assets and establishes the level of service at the town of Pelham. The reporting software, currently the town is using Municipal DataWorks. It's a software developed by Marmac. And this was a great opportunity for the town. Marmac worked with Ontario Good Roads and also with the MFOA. And for municipalities under 20,000 residents, we were able to get the software at no cost. So that was helpful to the town. And the Municipal DataWorks manages inventory and creates and customizes capital forecasts, and a 10-year forecast can be created. And the balance software is designed to track and manage financial aspects of the asset management, such as replacement costs and life cycle costs for assets. And now I'm going to hand this over to the Director of Public Works.
Thank you. So when we talk about core assets, as Ms. Quinlan has stated previously, we were looking at roads, water mains, our sanitary sewer systems, stormwater systems, and our bridges and major culverts. So these are our major core asset categories. With our roads, we have about 487 lane kilometers. A lane kilometer is one direction of traveled traffic. So approximately half of this then would be your total number of road kilometers. Of those road kilometers, about 60% of those lane kilometers are in rural areas. So those would be considered more of our low class bituminous type roadways, would be your surface treatment roadside ditches. The other 40% would be in urban areas, and that would include your asphaltic concrete sections of roadway you see in urban areas. Water mains, we have about 90 kilometers of water mains. Our sanitary gravity mains, we maintain and operate about 65 kilometers. And you see below there's a sanitary force main. So we do have some force mains. The difference between a gravity main and a force main is obviously the sewage is transported in a gravity main via gravity. In a force main, it's actually pumped and forced upgrade to a point where we can get it entered into the system, a gravity system, and then it takes its way through the system from there. The storm sewer inventory, this is a work in progress right now. So John, who you'll hear from later, is currently going through our stormwater inventory to build that database. Traditionally, this is the stormwater system with municipalities is there's not a lot of data on this type of system. The roads, we do our PCI studies. We try to do those at least once every 3 years to get a condition, an updated condition on our road network. Water mains, obviously, you know when a water main breaks. That's something that can be seen readily. Our sanitary sewer systems, as was presented in the capital budget, we do annual inspections with CCTV cameras. So we actually video and camera the condition of those mains. Our storm systems are ones that we don't generally collect a lot of data on. So that's going to be a challenge for us to get that component and an asset up to date in the asset management plan, but we're committed to get that done by July. The bridges and culverts, again, there's 23 bridges and culverts that we maintain and operate in the town. When you look at the estimated replacement cost, so this is driven by different factors depending on what asset category it is. With the roads, we rely heavily on our PCI report. And basically what's done, it's based on a per square meter replacement value. So like I said before, you have your high class bituminous and your low class bituminous. So your high class bituminous roads are valued at about $125 per square meter for a replacement value. And our low class bituminous roads are around $20 per square meter. So that's how we determine that replacement cost for that asset category. Water mains, we have $28 million. Sanitary sewer gravity mains, we have $37 million. And those are based on per unit cost, based on the size and diameter of the pipe and the depth, specifically with the sanitary mains, the depth at which those pipes are installed. Again, storm sewer, that's an asset inventory that we're still working towards completing as part of our 5 core assets. And our bridges and culverts, similar to the roads, we do biannual inspections on all of our bridges and major culverts. We're legislated to do that. And as part of those reports, it'll identify what the replacement cost would be per square meter on those structures. And just a going number is around $6,000 per square meter for replacement of a major bridge and culvert. So looking at the asset age for our categories, roads, our average age is about 15 years, water mains 27, the sanitary sewers are around 36, bridges and culverts around 48. So I guess the interesting point to note here, roads, when we redesign a road, we look at extending the life of that asset to anywhere between 30 to 40 years. Water mains, they're usually designed and built to somewhere between 75 and 100 years, as well as with the sanitary mains, somewhere between 80 and 100 years is what the life expectancy we're looking to gain off those assets. And with the bridges and culverts, again, depends on the type of installation, but for a concrete design structure, you're looking at around a 75 to 100 year lifespan. So I guess when you look at the average age of our assets and look at the what the life expectancy is of those assets once they're replaced, we're probably at about 50% average age versus expected life expectancy. So that's what I want to bring from that. And now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Derek Young. He's our manager of engineering, and he also is very heavily involved in the preparation and the presentation of our asset management plan for the town.
Thank you, Jason. So as Jason pointed out, we went through all the data, all the stuff we've collected over the number of years. John and I have gone through it all and pulled it all together. And instead of trying to baffle you with the total numbers, we thought we'd put them in charts that are easy to read. If you go look at the roads, the roads are in reasonably good condition. There's a good section of road that's in very good. We've got 40% in the good, but we've also got areas that are less, which are fair and poor, which we have to address. And we're currently looking into those in the budgeting process. When you move on to the water, the same again. The water, it's indicated 25% of our water is poor to fair condition. Now, the majority of this is more our cast iron that needs to be replaced. And I believe we will speak to that later, that there's an application for grant funding to replace a large section of our cast iron water main, which will bring our network up to a better standard. Sanity gravity mains, these are all in pretty fair condition. As Mr. Marr pointed out, we do get them CCTV'd annually. We try to cover the entire network within a 4 to 5 year span, so that we keep on top of it and keep them in pretty good condition and try to address any issues that come up before they happen. The sanitary force mains are reasonably new. I'm going to say there's one that's probably 15 years old, but the remaining are 10 years old or less, and why they're in good condition and very good condition. There's minimum maintenance requirements on those ones. With regards to the bridges and culverts, it's pointed out earlier that we have these, we're regulated to have them inspected every 2 years. And from that, we get a report that indicates which ones are in poor condition that need immediate attention, which ones are in fair condition that need routine maintenance to bring them back up to a good condition. And obviously the good ones will still need some maintenance, but the very good ones are the more recent ones that we've reconstructed. So we tried to come up with a financial forecasting to give an indication on how we do it. As Teresa pointed out earlier, we use Municipal data works for this. So this is a financial forecasting purely just for the roads. So in option 1 here, if the town had unlimited budget and we wanted to raise our PCI value up to an 87 value, it would show you that in 2022 we'd need $17.5 million to get them up there, and a further $9 million in 2023, and another $16 million in 2024, which in realistic terms is not achievable. So if you have a look at option 2, which is more in line with a budget with constraints, which is in line with the size of the municipality we have, to try and raise the value or raise the PCI value of our roads, which the last PCI report we had gave an average of 69 for the entire network. And if we want to maintain that value or increase it, these are the type of budget numbers we'd be looking at to maintain the current level of where we're at now. should we choose to increase the levels of service and increase the PCI value, then obviously the numbers will increase cost-wise. One good thing to note is the bottom one. It says RLE, the average, that's the remaining life expectancy. So the remaining life expectancy on our road network is around 21.5 years for next year. And with the budget constraints that the town kind of has, we keep that. We maintain that. For a number of years before we would start then dropping off. But it's a good indication of the difference between having an unlimited budget and a budget where it's a realistic one within the municipality's constraints and budget numbers that we have. So I'll now pass it over to John Rasser, who's our GIS.
I'm going to stop sharing, and John, if you can introduce yourself. And you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, give me 1 sec. I'm just showing my screen here. Okay. So as I was introduced, my name is John Rasso. I've been working on the asset management plan for a little over a year now. And a lot of my work has involved finding information that's been kind of stored in different places, reports, folders, and kind of consolidating it, updating existing information. So a large part of that work has already been completed, and I've consolidated that information, but I've also made it accessible not only in reports, but and in kind of tables, but in a visual format as well. So what you're looking at right here is an area of Pelham where our assets that have been updated are kind of displayed visually. So to kind of better explain it, each line and point here is representing an asset in the real world. So the orange, green, and blue are kind of different asset types that's just been color coded for kind of to make it easier to tell the difference between different things. So the orange shapes and lines here is the stormwater system. So an orange line here is representing a stormwater pipe. The squares here are catch basins, and the circles are manholes. And you can see this stormwater pipe here runs along Pelham Town Square. Right here in the corner here is Town Hall. Down here is Station Street, and at the bottom is Port Robertson Road, just to kind of give you a sense of where we're looking at here. Aside from the stormwater system, we also have the sanitary sewer displayed in green. So again, green line here is a sanitary sewer pipe, and the circle is a manhole. And then we have water mains in blue. And on the water mains, you'll see triangles. Those are the red triangles are hydrants, and the green ones are valves. So a lot of information here already on the screen, but it's not just like lines and points. There's information stored here as well, and it's accessible kind of at our fingertips with just kind of the click of a button. So let me just select some of the information we have on the screen here. So this is at the base of Station Street. You can see here there's a stormwater main and some of the information that's been stored with that pipe. So you can see it's roughly 63 meters long. It has a diameter of 525 millimeters. And at the bottom here, you can see it was installed in 2014. And it's made of polyvinyl chloride, which is essentially a plastic. There's a sanitary sewer pipe on this road too in this area. It was installed in 1971, so it's aging. It's made of asbestos cement, which is kind of like concrete. It's 250 millimeters in diameter, and it's roughly 60 meters long. And we even have the condition, it's in fair condition there. There's also a water main as well, which is made of PVC. And it's got a 200 millimeter diameter. It's roughly 90 meters long, and it was installed in 2019. So just looking at the first few assets here that I've selected, there's a lot of information just in this small section that's been kind of recorded and made available to those that are looking for it. So it's kind of important or useful for somebody that may be doing work in this area. We also have road assets too, so we have information about the roads as well. Those are the kind of dark gray lines you can see kind of underneath everything. You can see this road here was actually had some more recent work done in 2010. It's made of high-class bituminous asphalt, and it's got a condition of 75 out of 100 with a length and a width here. So these are the core assets. The stormwater inventory is still kind of incomplete, so it still needs some work, but it's in progress. In the kind of near future, we're hoping to look at other assets like streetlights or curbs and stuff like that. And we've made progress on non-core assets, such as the tree inventory. So if I bear with me as I kind of zoom out here.
John.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt, but before we move on to the trees, if we go back, you have to go back to that visual, but this is information that the town has had in different locations. And to have one repository where public works staff, whether it's engineer or public works operations staff, can go and identify on one segment of road what all the assets are, what their condition is, inverts of pipes. This is valuable information that will assist the engineering staff and the public works staff in carrying out their duties, and will really help the engineering department as well as finance to basically use that information and condition data and seeing all the infrastructure in one area, one spot, to help us plan and plan for future projects and develop our forecast. So I just want to make that point that this is new. This is the first time we've had everything in one place, and like John said, at the click of a button, we can look at a segment of road and look at all the assets in that road segment, look at condition, what they're made of, what pipes are in the ground, depths, inverts. And so that's just valuable information. I just want to make sure I made that comment. Sorry, John.
No, just kind of building off of what Jason was saying, not only can we click on things, we can also kind of look at things with a different perspective too. So for right now, these kind of dark green kind of splotches here are kind of representing all the trees that have been surveyed so far for the tree inventory. And as part of that process, the trees have been assigned a condition value. So taking a look at some of the information that's been recorded, we can take a look at all the trees that are, say, in poor condition. So they all pop up here. And so you can see exactly where they are. If you want to find out where all the dead trees are, so far there's been 8 dead trees that have been surveyed, and you know exactly where they are. And if we zoomed in, we can see exactly where these trees are located. So it's kind of handy. But this isn't just limited to trees too. If you want to look at the water mains that are in poor condition, we can bring those up as well. So if I come here, all these water mains are in poor condition. And a lot of them are, this one is installed in 1935. So it's getting quite old. It's made of, should be cast iron actually, that's a mistake on my part. Cast iron here, 1955.
So saying that, John, I just want to jump in. What's important about this is that when we get a grant application, we have to respond very quickly. We have a very short time period to respond. So the ICIP Green Grant 2 was specific for water mains. And because we had this information so handy, we were able to quickly identify where the poor water mains were, and we put in a grant application for that. Right now, there's a grant application for over $3 million of provincial and federal funding that we're waiting to hear the outcome of that. But this information was critical not only to show the ministry folks that, we actually have proof that the assets are in poor condition and they meet the eligibility of the grant, but at our fingertips, we were very quickly, we were able to submit the grant application. If we didn't have this, by the time we went through all the manual papers to find this, we probably would have lost the time period to submit the grant. So this is extremely important. It's been so beneficial right now with some of the grant applications that we're doing. I don't know, Jason, if you want to just talk about that particular grant, where that is, the North Pelham?
Sure. So exactly, we put in a cast iron replacement grant application through the ICIP grant, and it's basically in the area of Canberra Road from Hayes to Highway 20, and also includes the water main on Pinecrest to the north of Highway 20, and then further to the south on Highway 20, which is east of Hay Street, Daleview, Strathcona, Mute Lane. So all those water mains are old cast iron water mains. Most of them are over 50 years old, and those were the projects that were selected as part of the grant application.
That kind of concludes the demonstration I wanted to have for this. I don't have anything. This is all I've prepared for this presentation, so I'll stop sharing here.
Thank you, John.
And Teresa, is that your demonstration?
Yes, that's our presentation. So we're open to any questions from either the report or from our presentation.
Thank you. I've always wondered what would happen if Ryan retired. So I'm glad to see that this is going to look after that part of the town. Excellent. Ryan, you're being replaced by a computer that knows all of your secrets.
Well, I'll just say Ryan's been pretty helpful in actually getting this running. He knows a lot, so he's been a useful resource for filling in some missing information. So we still need Ryan.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Olson, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is pretty much everything I expected and was looking for. This is really good. And congratulations to the team there, because I looked at this and you can clearly see the strategic value of it, and adding the natural assets to it has been a real good thing, and it will be a good thing. And the GIS, I mean, you can't get any better than that. And the representation you just did with the trees there, and show all the different trees in one boulevard is that's very worthwhile. And I think the tree committee, the Pelham Tree Conservation Society, will be happy with that as well, and it'll support the tree policy. So I'm very delighted with it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions on the presentation? Not seen any. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that Council receive the Asset Management Plan presentation from Teresa Quinlan Murphy, Treasurer, Jason Marr, Director of Public Works, Derek Young, Manager of Engineering, and John Rasso, Asset Management and GIS Analysis, for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any other discussion?
One more time, Council. Any comments or questions? Back to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item on the agenda, which is the adoption of minutes. And I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. 1. Special Council 18/2021, Special Council December 6, 2021, and C. 20/2021, regular council, December 6, 2021. To you, Mr. Mayor, to call for any errors or omissions.
Okay, council, on those two sets of minutes, any remarks on omissions of them? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, as we have amended the agenda, you do have a staff report, and this is the Weber Road and Far Road drainage report, and I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0211 Weber Road, Far and River Road drainage issues for information, and that Council direct staff to hold a community meeting with the property owners in the Weber, Far, and River Road area to discuss drainage issues, identify possible solutions, and provide options to property owners. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion or questions on this item? Councillor Wink.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to make some comments. I appreciate the efforts that staff did on this report, and I understand the predicament that we're in. I think it behooves us to go forward with the engineering study on this without making further commitments beyond that study, but at least it's showing some resolve on council's part that we're not leaving these people in the lurch, and there's got to be some options available to us further on down the road. So I thank staff for that. Building on somewhat of what Councillor Hahn said, I like the idea of going to the region and asking for some assistance in this, but I think we have to build into this that if they refuse to provide assistance, that we still go forward with this study. So I'd like to make a motion that we go forward with the study, that we go to the region to see if they would participate in 50% cost sharing on this. Failing that we would still go with this study.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. And do you have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kaur.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I apologize.
Yes, go ahead.
As previously stated, the $50,000 budgetary piece is built within the consent agenda, and that would be where council would be able to amend that resolution where committee had directed council spend the $50,000. And I think it might be most appropriate procedurally to amend that recommendation to also include, as Councillor Wink has indicated, the items that council has discussed, and I have taken note if that's acceptable to Councillor Wink and to Councillor Kaur.
Okay, Councillor, so we will be looking for that motion a little later on then. So on this particular one, Madam Clerk, what do we need?
For this particular one, we do have the mover and the seconder, and it is to receive the report for information and to further direct staff to hold community meetings with the property owners. And so at this point, it doesn't deal with the funding that will be with respect to the consent agenda.
Oh, okay. Okay, excellent. Is Councillor understand then what we're going to be doing? Moving it down. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Was there any other comments on this staff report?
On the staff report, is there any comments, questions on it? And again, I also like to thank staff for, they didn't have very much time to bring this staff report to council. The landowner had contacted myself. They wanted the ball to be kicked down the road fairly quickly, and they brought forth this report, and I'm looking, so again, thank you for getting the report to council as fast as you did. Councillor Stewart, I believe.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is the appropriate first step, and I'm hoping that, I think staff will be consulting with the region on this as well, and possibly the NPCA, possibly with a community meeting. I'm hoping those other entities could be involved in it as well, so everyone can understand what the boundaries are of who's responsible for what. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wink, did I see your hand?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So just for clarification, we're recommending that we sit down with all the respective parties, the residents, the NPCA, the region, and whatever. Would we still do that if later on we go and approve the funding for the engineering report?
Let's ask the Director of Planning what her thoughts would be on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So if this motion passes, we would, undertake this community meeting. And if their funding for the drainage study also gets approved, we would undertake to do that drainage study. So we would be doing those two items. And there might be some further consultation in the drainage study if that's built into the RFP of that as well, which I suspect it will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. And that brings you to your next item on the agenda, which is a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0206 for information, and that Council approve the capital budget in the amount of $250,000 as part of the 2022 capital budget to fund the first phase of the LED streetlight conversion project, and that Council approve the proposed capital budget identified as RD 13-22, reconstruction of Effingham Street from Highway 20 to Tice Road, have the capital budget request reduced from $1,075,000 to $825,000 in order to fund the first phase of the LED street light conversion program, and that Council approve the award of the first phase of the LED street light conversion program to Real Term Energy to an upset amount of $250,000. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Discussion on this resolution, Council. What we discussed, obviously, at budget meeting, and just reaffirming what we were going to do. Any other questions or comments on that? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the first vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. One moment. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does now bring us to the consideration of the consent agenda. We are on item number 7, in which council can lift any items. I would need a request from a councillor to lift item 8.1. That is the item which is the presentations of recommendations arising from COW for council approval, and that does include the revised 2022 capital budget amendments as discussed on December 14, 2021, and does include that Weber Road drainage piece if council does want to further discuss and potentially amend. So I look to council to see if there's anybody who wishes to lift any items.
Okay, thank you. After viewing the consent agenda items, is there any items I see? Councillor Wink.
I'd like to lift 8.1, please.
Okay, thank you. Any other items that council would like to lift? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Therefore, 8.1 will be considered separately. I do have a resolution, a motion put forward by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the December 20th, 2021 council agenda be received and the recommendations therein contained be improved, save and accept item 8.1. To you, Mr. Mayor, if council has any discussions, general discussions on the consent agenda, now would be the time.
Excellent. Any other comments on the agenda items in general? Now would be the time. And I see Councillor Stewart.
Yes, 8.3.3, the water arrears collections.
Yes.
I think it's a good idea, and I think it would work well. My only concern is that there are a lot of rental properties, and there are lots of them, or some of them at the very least, where the tenants would pay their rent plus utilities. So what would happen in that case, if a resident had the water utility registered in their name and they defaulted? Would the town go after them for collection or to the property owner?
Thank you for that question. And I see Mr. CAO has his hand up.
So this change would not interfere with the private right to contract, which is to say a willing landlord and a willing tenant can still enter into a contract that decides who's going to pay for water. What this change would affect, Ms. Quinlan Murphy's advice, and mine for that matter, is how the town goes about collecting if there are arrears as against the municipality, in which case it's very clearly becomes the property owner's responsibility. So how a landlord chooses to charge and whether that affects what they want to charge for rent or whether they build it in or not is a private contractual matter. That won't change. We're not changing the law there. We are, however, saying that if there are arrears on a property, we'll collect them through taxes, and taxes are paid by the owner of the property, i.e. the landlord.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Council. Any other questions, comments?
Your Worship, I think Ms. Quinlan Murphy has.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Something to add to my generalist answer.
Okay.
Yes,
Go
thank you. Thank you to the mayor. I just want to say that I think it's been about a couple of years now that for any new tenant right now, the water is actually collected through the property owner and there is no agreement with the tenant. We have a few of them still left, like grandfathered that way, but just to let council know that, when someone has a tenant, we don't have an agreement with the tenant. We actually have it with the property owner in order to avoid all this as well.
Thank you. Any other?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, and in that case, Councillor Hildebrandt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the same issue on taxes, is there a new regulation on taxes? Because most rental property owners have the rental person pay the taxes as well as the water.
Ms. Quinlan Murphy?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, most of the property taxes are through the property owner, not through the rental.
Councillor?
I have no further questions.
Okay.
I can double check that, but
Well, if I may, it's immaterial to the municipality. Again, how privately the landlord and the tenants, whether it's commercial property or residential property, come to a contractual relationship, or what the terms are between them. Vis-a-vis the municipality and the Municipal Act, though, our collection goes to whomever owns the property. And that's where, in this case, water arrears get added to taxes, and we are guaranteed to be pay those. So that's the benefit to the municipality in this. The benefit to residents is they won't have their water cut off. So everyone gets something. In this arrangement, everyone gets something.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Does that mean that the property owner could be sitting there and their resident not paying water or taxes, and all of a sudden something happens a year later before he even realizes he's got a problem?
Mr. CAO?
Well, again, it's not the municipality's business whether they're good landlords or poor landlords. I mean, we hope for only good property owners in Pelham, and I'm sure that's our majority. But the private relations between those, and I would agree with Ms. Quinlan Murphy, I don't think, at least residential rental agreements don't typically have the renter paying property tax, not directly. You take that out of your rental income. It's tax deductible, of course, for the landlord. So I think that's the more common methodology, but again, not a direct municipal concern. The key is that for residents who go through difficult, hard times, water doesn't get cut off anymore. And that's, a basic human sort of access thing. And in return, we're guaranteed our collections. It might take years, but the municipality will get its money 100 cents on the dollar.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other council have any other comments on 8.3.3 or any other consent item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. That does bring us to the items to be considered separately. Councillor Wink did lift 8.1, and that's the presentations and recommendations arising from COW for council approval. And that does include the individual recommendations from committee from their December 4th, 2021 meeting, which does include the Weber Road. Let me just find that resolution so I can read that to you. Item number 4 within that does include a resolution that committee recommend council approve a project for a drainage study for Weber Road and Far Road in the amount of $50,000 to be added to the 2022 capital budget. I believe that was the item of interest to you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Council Wink, is that, Council Kaur, is that satisfactory?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Discussion on this item by any members of council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry?
If I may, I have been taking some notes in what I was hearing through the discussion, and it might be helpful if I read a proposed amendment, and certainly council can do what they like with that, but just as a starting point, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
And this is, again, just from what I was hearing through the conversation. So it may be that the motion be amended to include in paragraph 4, as I've noted, and that council direct the drainage study completed be a public document and shared with the public, and that council direct staff to request the region to contribute 50% of the costs of the said drainage study, and that council direct staff to return to council for further direction should the drainage study RFP cost is more than blank dollars, and that council direct the town clerk to circulate this request to the Niagara region. To you, Mr. Mayor.
I believe, though, Councilor Wink, if I remember correctly, took away that one, that we asked the region to come in half, but we are prepared to spend the $50,000. Is that correct, Councilor Wink?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what I have therefore now is I left that council direct staff to request the region to contribute the 50% of the cost is simply just a request. And I have included $50,000. So, and that council direct staff to return to council for further direction should the drainage study RFP cost is more than $50,000. So you would be coming back to council. Oh, I see the CAO has perhaps some comments on this.
Yes, Mr. CAO?
Again, in the strongest possible language, I want to encourage all of council not to word that part of the motion that way. If it is that staff request, we are going to speak with other staff members who, like us, although on regional payroll, don't have the authority to go and spend $25,000 unnecessarily. So this needs to be a strong, proactive motion. Council of the town of Pelham approve and endorse a $50,000 study and request the region to contribute because of the region's roads in proximity and the regional interest in resolving this matter amicably, or in the greatest of haste, something of that nature. If it's a council motion, it will go directly to the clerk, the regional clerk, sent by our town clerk. It will go on a public agenda, and the only way to access monies possibly is for a political decision to be made at the staff level, in much the same way that town staff could not recommend spending these dollars because on the corporate side there's no specific need. Regional staff will be faced with the exact same constraint. So I can tell you that will already fail. It really needs to be a council motion, and you need to be saying this is a public good and the region should help. And the reason the region should help is that as roads in the vicinity, it will behoove the region to make sure this is solved as expeditiously as possible.
Okay.
Something that fits your views on the issue, but I think it has to be a council motion to have any chance of success.
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have scribbled down some of what Mr. CAO has indicated, and I'm certainly happy to re-review these tapes tomorrow and make sure that I have his language down on this. And yes, I would be therefore then sending and circulating the letter to the regional clerk. Yes.
Okay. Is council content to vote on the motion and then let the clerk fine-tune it tomorrow while sitting with the CAO? Councillor Hahn?
Yes, thank you through the mayor. So earlier when we talked about having a public meeting, I believe it was Councillor Stewart who also suggested perhaps the NPCA be included in that meeting. So if we're going to have a fulsome meeting with the public and invite the region, also the MPCA, would it then behoove us to also include the MPCA in this motion with regards to funding as well?
Madam Clerk?
I'm happy to include any agencies that council does wish. I don't know if the CAO has any, or perhaps Ms. Weens has any comments on what appropriate agencies should be requested funding.
Ms. Weens, any comment on that?
Mr. Mayor, through you, no, I don't have any comment with respect to that. Typically, with respect to drainage issues, the MPCA is only involved in areas that they regulate, and that is the floodplain. So I'm not sure that this is something that they have, again, authority or jurisdiction to participate in. It's not a regulated floodplain, is from what I understand.
Okay, my understanding was just in proximity to the river, right? They would have obviously some jurisdiction with regards to the flow of water into the river, et cetera, et cetera. So that was my line of thinking. But if you're saying that they have no jurisdiction, then there's no point in including them. But if they do, then I would.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, we can probably strict the MPCA.
Thank you.
Okay. Are you ready to call the vote? So, and just to be clear, because Councilor Wink's motion was that we would, we going to build it in to ask the region, but region participation or not, we will continue to do the study if it comes under the $50,000. Is that understood?
That is my understanding. My understanding is that it is a strong request that the region contribute 50%. However, as I've indicated in this motion, it further says, and that council directs staff to return to council for further direction should the drainage study come in at more than 50,000. So I think that town council is committing to 50,000 of our own monies, which was discussed, but not anymore. And if it would come in greater than that, then it would need to come back.
Excellent, excellent. Council Wink and my Council Core, you happy with that then?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay, great. Any discussion from any other councilors on this motion? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So this amendment is being presented from Councillor Wink and seconded by Councillor Core. And again, this is the amendment. And this vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Core.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So therefore, the amendment itself is approved, and that brings you to the main motion as amended. If council has any other discussion on 8.1 in its entirety, now would be the time.
Okay, any other questions on 8.1 as it stands? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. I will use the same mover, being Councillor Wink, and same seconder, being Councillor Core. So this is the main motion as amended, and this vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Core.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to your next item on the agenda. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just note that it is 8:55, and we do have some quite a few items left on the agenda. I don't know if council wants to consider curfew now, or if you'd like me to interrupt you in 5 minutes.
Let's see what we get done in 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next item on the agenda, we do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that council receive report 2021-0208, Assumption of River Estates Phase 1 subdivision for information, and that council assume the municipal services in River Estates Phase 1 subdivision and open the streets within the subdivision as public highways by bylaw in accordance with the subdivision agreement. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any staff or any council questions or comments on this item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Core.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to your next item on the agenda, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that council receive report 2021-0197 Shared Servicing Agreement, Shared Appeals Hearing Officer for information, and that council authorize and direct the mayor and town clerk to execute the said shared servicing agreement attached hereto as Appendix A, and that council direct staff to prepare the necessary bylaw for council's consideration with respect to appointing Rediford Prosecutions as the appeal officer with respect to the Administrative Monetary Penalty System, AMPS, for both parking and non-parking related offenses for the town of Pelham. The position of legislative and committee coordinator as a screening officer with respect to the Administrative Monetary Penalty System, AMPS, for both parking and non-parking related items for the town of Pelham, and that council direct staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to allow both screening officer reviews and appeal officer reviews to be conducted virtually for both AMPS, parking, and non-parking related offenses. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and it was an excellent initiative put forward by Pelham's Clerk's department, and obviously the other municipalities were quick to jump onto this. Another example of shared cost among the municipalities, and it's a great initiative. Council, any comments or questions on this? Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's an excellent policy as well. The only thing I question is, it says the parties shall pay all financial contributions by way of check. That's the way financial contributions are going to pay. Isn't that a rather old-fashioned way of paying financial contributions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have checked with our finance department, and as my understanding at this point in time, that is how we would receive our funds in.
Any comment from the treasurer or on this?
Yes, that is correct.
I guess that's how we do business, Councilor Hildebrand.
So what you're saying is a person like I would have to pay this thing with a check.
Our sister municipalities who will be contributing their annual fee, yes, they will have to submit a check, or certainly will take cash if they'd like to come down.
So it's the sister municipalities that are paying the checks.
That's correct.
Any further comment, Councillor?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, back to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry, and I do see we are at 9 o'clock, and I would be looking for waiving of curfew, if any member of council is willing to do so.
And Madam Clerk, quickly looking at the amount of business left over, definitely under 15 minutes. Would that be a correct assumption?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that certainly it could likely be conducted within 15 minutes.
Okay, Council, do we have a motion from anyone to extend curfew by not 15 minutes? I see Councilor Wink. Is there a seconder? Councilor Hildebrand? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is waiving our curfew to 9:15. This vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does so carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings us to our next item on the agenda, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that the Council for the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, third time and do now pass, and state that the mayor and clerk be and hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. 1. Bylaw number 4408-2021, being a bylaw to assume the subdivision known as River Estates Phase 1 subdivision and to designate the streets as shown on the Register Plan 59M 434 as public highways and to name the streets accordingly. Bylaw number 4409-2021, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136-1987 as amended for lands 1522 Pelham Street, legally described as Lot 3, Plan 715, west side of Pelham Street, Part Lot 52, Plan 717, Geographical Township of Thorold in the Town of Pelham, from the General Commercial GC Zone to the Site-Specific General Commercial GC-311 Zone, JMT Partnership, File Number AM 1020. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any discussion on these two bylaws? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. This does bring us to Councillor Hildebrandt's report to council.
Okay, Councillor, you have the floor.
Okay, in 30 seconds, this report was prepared for the public and as a reference document to answer whatever cannabis-related questions the public may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilors, hopefully you read the report. Any questions to the councillor? And Councillor, I do not see any. Thank you for that report, though.
Thank you.
Okay. To the clerk?
Thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that Council receive the presentation and report from Councillor Hildebrandt with respect to the Cannabis Control Committee for information. Through you, Mr. Mayor, any other discussion?
Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. We do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be ready for second and third time and passed, being bylaw number 4410/2021 to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council of the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 20th day of December 2021. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any debate.
Any debate? I don't think so, and I'm correct. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt?
Yes.
Councillor Kaur?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for January 10th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any discussion.
Any discussion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry, and it is 9:04, and you can gavel out your meeting.
This meeting is over, and a Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Enjoy the time off.
Good meeting, Madam Clerk.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.